краю нашого полі, я полкового знамена, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою всі скидання, воно вібрало у собі.
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великой страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, та вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар. Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 222 of the news and another night of fundraising for Ukraine.
And of course, we're going to be reporting on the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine, as we've now entered day 222 of the war in Ukraine. And what better way to celebrate this odd numerical number set of all twos here on the 222nd day of the war with the Sunday fundraiser, and not only the Sunday fundraiser, but some massive news. The Ukrainians are continuing their offensives in the Lyman area, which we will be covering tonight, but at the same time, the Russian front lines have collapsed in the Kherson area, and the Ukrainian armed forces are racing down the country road nearest to the Dnieper River Reservoir on their way to Novokakhovka. Before we get to all of this news, we do have a quick note tonight, a very special one. We are running a Sunday fundraiser, and this is not just any Sunday fundraisers. As you can see on the title of this fundraiser, it says, "Help the Enforcer raise $500,000 total in fundraisers." Just in case if y'all do not know, we are, at the start of the stream tonight, $8.3 thousand away from reaching $500,000 total raised in all of our fundraisers combined. I made sure to do the math before the stream to figure that out, and that's how close we are. And so if you're wondering, how close are we to $500,000? Look at that fundraiser goal, and however much there is in between the total raised and the goal is how close we are getting. Once we pass $8.3 thousand tonight, we'll have raised $500,000 in total for the Ukrainians all across all of our fundraisers combined. It's a massive night, I've got to say. It's unbelievable to think that we've gotten this far with our fundraisers. And real quick, let's give a quick mention of who our fundraiser is tonight. Our fundraiser is Revive Soldiers of Ukraine. Revive Soldiers of Ukraine has been in operation ever since around 2016 to 17, and has been providing rehabilitation and medical services to Ukrainian soldiers that have been wounded over the course of the Donbass conflict, and then later on, the war in Ukraine as we see today. Revive Soldiers of Ukraine has a little bit of a personal story for us because, as y'all know, Operator Starsky has been on this channel many times. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us tonight, but one story that he does have is that Revive Soldiers of Ukraine actually helped to save one of his friends who was shot in the head, and thanks to Revive Soldiers of Ukraine, his friend was actually able to survive the injury and is now living an incredibly normal life considering the circumstances. And so if you would like to help actual Ukrainian soldiers, this is the fundraiser that helps them out the most. And also, another quick thing is that these counterattacks have been covering massive amounts of ground. And these counterattacks are being carried on nothing but the bravery and the training of these great soldiers that will end up being wounded. And while I don't show a lot of these videos, and there's not a lot of them around, Ukrainian soldiers do get wounded and die every single day on the front lines defending the nation of Ukraine. And the ones that are wounded desperately need support from fundraisers like Revive Soldiers of Ukraine to make sure that they can get some kind of rehabilitation service or some kind of medical service, so that way they can make sure to survive as best as they can. And so if you would like to help them out, this is tonight's fundraiser goal. It's symbolic. $8.3 thousand is just to reach 500K. But once we reach that, the sky's the limit. The fundraiser doesn't stop once we reach the goal. You can continue to add in as much, I guess you could say, support as you would wish. And so with that, now covering the fundraiser, we are finally going to be making our way on into tonight's news. And we're going to be starting off in the area that is probably the most interesting, and also the reason for tonight's title and thumbnail. 25,000 Russian soldiers are on the western banks of the Dnieper River, all the way from Kherson towards the area of Vyskopillyia. Just yesterday, if you had seen this front line the other day, the front line was about something like this, I would say. So we'll put Old Russian front right here. And we'll put that in, what's a good color? We'll put it in this salmon pink, you know, just so that way you can tell it's
Sockeye salmon pink.
Sockeye salmon. Where has Sylvia the Sockeye salmon been? Anyways, before we get off in that rabbit hole, that's about where the front lines were yesterday. This is where the front lines are today. The Ukrainians have blown through the Russian lines in this area as well, and that cannot be overstated how much ground has been made today. If we whipped out a ruler based off of our front line yesterday and drew in a straight line from here to, I believe it's called Duchany, which is where they are now, they have covered an entire 20 miles as the crow flies again today. Just in 24 hours. And this is supposedly where the Russians, as y'all remember, have most of their forces. They moved a lot of their forces and shifted them around amongst the front lines in Ukraine into Kherson when they were hearing that the Ukrainians were most likely going to be conducting a counterattack here. And the Ukrainian government had constantly been telling them, just give it a bit, we're going to get to it, we're going to knock this out, we're going to take Kherson back. And they moved almost most of their armed forces in Ukraine into this area. And from what we know, they never moved out of there. So they're all still there. These forces took on the bulk of the Russian army inside of Ukraine and took 20 miles of land as an end result. The Russians this is it. We're not even watching a war anymore. This is just Ukraine going through the victory laps of retaking ground. It looks like there's no resistance anywhere, considering that this is where the front line is supposedly the strongest for the Russians, and they're not even facing resistance here anymore. And I've got to say, I've really got to say, regardless of what will happen in the future because of this, this is unbelievable to see that the Ukrainians have truly, this isn't just me saying it anymore and kind of like a symbolic statement of they've turned the tide of the war. They have truly turned the tide of the war. They don't even face opposition anywhere they go. They're just taking ground regardless. And so with that, it is amazing to see that they've taken this much ground. And of course, just to show y'all some proof, and 1 second, for some reason, the muscle on the left side of my neck is spazzing out, and I think it's because I'm speaking so high-pitched and quickly, so I'm going to take a break from that for a second. But we can see here a picture on Twitter of the Ukrainians holding the flag over the town of Kherson, I believe. And so if we go to the map down here in Kherson, and we try and find this town, there's Kherson right there, and we already know, based off of reports, that the Russians have been pushed all the way back to Duchany, which we can see about right here, actually. They show it on this map. Now, we don't know if they've made it, we don't know if the Ukrainians have made it to Duchany. We don't know where their forces are anywhere in this bulge, but one thing that we were able to confirm is that they have made it close, or if not all the way to, and have already passed Duchany at this point. And so it's amazing to see that the Ukrainian armed forces are becoming a living steamroller. I don't even think, although we will make sure to respect OPSEC from here forward, I don't even think the Russians can put up any kind of resistance, substantial resistance anymore, to make OPSEC worthwhile. But of course, that's the pitfall of fools, because once you start thinking that, and you explain everything that's happening and everything that the Ukrainians are doing, that could start to be detrimental to the Ukrainians. So we're going to make sure to never violate OPSEC, but oh man, what are the Russians going to do over here? Because this is also another major ordeal. All of the bridge crossings across the Dnipro River have been destroyed in this area. Destroyed enough that armored vehicles and heavier vehicles cannot cross anymore. Only infantry, as far as we're assuming, can cross these bridges, and even then, it will be a pretty difficult time trying to get a large bulk of them back across the Dnipro River. And so what's going to happen to all the Russians on this side of the river? Are they going to end up surrounded? Are they going to end up surrendering, overrun? What's going to happen? I have nothing but good hopes for the Ukrainian armed forces in this area, because as the Ukrainians continue to advance today in this area, we did see that they had an interesting occurrence of capturing some more Russian tanks, showing you how quickly the Russians are being overrun in this area during the offensive today, and that once again, it's so quick that they're leaving behind completely intact operational and running tanks. We can see Ukrainian tank taking out a T-72B3 right here. Of course, marked with the Z's.
Машинка БТР зелений, за вами вже виїхали. Виходьте з піднятими руками або по пострілу, або по мачете.
And they just are getting them everywhere. And this is the only video I was able to show today of this, but I'm certain that tomorrow, as has been the habit of this entire war, we will see loads of videos of captured weapon caches, more tanks, more armored personnel carriers that have come from the Kherson area, because 20 miles taken in a day, it's almost unfathomable to think about that, because a lot of us, especially here in the United States, will drive 20 miles in a straight line in one day and not think about it. But in military terms, 20 miles in a single day is phenomenal. It's unbelievable. And moving at this speed, you're giving, I guess you could say the defender, which would be the Russians at this point, no time to prepare any kind of organized retreat. They are in a rout at this point. And so all of the equipment, everything that they had is most likely going to be left behind. Supplies, tanks, everything. However, one thing that we have not seen in this area, although it was a route, is the Highway of Death like we saw in Lyman. And I actually did see some pictures of that today. But once again, a lot of y'all were probably here last night for us getting the age restriction. And so, of course, we can't show anything like that on stream. But real quick, 1 second.
I'm distracting the enforcer, folks. That's what he's doing.
Let's see. So, Matthew said, check the fundraiser. Susan L. sent in a donation. And I'm...
Well, check the PayPal, actually.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. So hang on, everyone, real quick. I got to make sure that I check this. Because every once in a while, because we have thrown out our PayPal before on request. Oh, yes, it is there. 1 second. Oh my goodness, that's a big one. Hang on, everyone. Let's see. Let me get this in my PayPal, and then I'll put it in the fundraiser.
And while the enforcer's doing that, folks, we are like reaching the goal so fast tonight. We're already at 6.1 thousand of the $8.3 thousand goal. That is the fastest I've ever seen a fundraiser on this channel ever go. That's absolutely tremendous.
1 second, everyone. I'm sorry for the momentum to stop here for a moment, but I just did have Susan Lismore send in $1,000 to be sent into the fundraiser. So let me transfer this. Let me transfer this on my PayPal. Okay, and now it's on its way. So now that we're getting that on its way, let me make sure to put that into our fundraiser. And I think that's only going to put us $1,000 away from tonight's goal. So real quick, everyone give me just a second. I actually put in my $100 during the countdown tonight to try and avoid this, but it's a special exception, I'd have to say. And also, everyone give a huge thank you to Susan Lismore, who sent this in so that way we can make sure to put it into the fundraiser. I think Susan Lismore may be an Australian viewer. I'm not exactly sure. And so they cannot support the fundraiser directly, apparently due to some kind of weird YouTube rules. But we are going to send it in. So real quick, let me go here. And let me actually check something real quick. Let's see. 1 second, everyone. 1 second. Okay. All right.
Also, folks, if you have a question for us tonight, don't forget to tag me and send it to me. Because since tonight is fundraiser night, we actually don't do super chats. It's just fundraiser support tonight.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point, is that tonight there are no super chats. Tonight is a free-for-all night. So if you have any question you want answered, make sure to just throw it in, because it will probably be put on Matthew's spreadsheet to be answered at some point. And so let me throw this in real quick. The biggest single donation I think I've ever put into a fundraiser in a block. So unfortunately, I won't be able to do this again tonight because I'm about to reach the limit on the credit card, which I'm using. So here we go. Y'all should see that right about now. And there we go. Hey, there we go. And we are now up to $7.6 thousand. Huge credit once again to Susan Lismore, who just sent that in to us over PayPal. Please no one do that right now, because I have reached the limit on my credit card. My debit card cannot do that. So I have to use the credit card, and there's a limit on it. And I wouldn't be able to do that tonight because I'd have to, you know, pay off the balance, and then that would take about a day or two, and then the fundraiser would be over. So please no one do that again, but huge credit to Susan Lismore for sending in that much support for us to send into this fundraiser. We are now only about $600 away from the goal. Can you believe that, Matthew? $600 away.
That's crazy, and we're only like, what, 20 minutes in?
25 minutes in, and that's all the way from our very start of the 10-minute countdown. We've only been live for about 15 minutes at this point, and we're almost already at the $500,000 goal. So with that, we're now going to get back to the news before we get distracted on that too much, because there will be a question segment coming up where we will probably celebrate the $8.3 thousand goal being passed. But moving on into our next bit of news, we saw that the biolabs in Ukraine were real today, as this Ukrainian super soldier pushed his T-90A out of a ditch with his bare hands. Here's the video. Look at this guy. He's actually pushing it.
No way.
I'm just kidding. It's actually attached to a tow cable in the
I was
back.
about to say.
And now you can see the actual recovery vehicle pulling it back there, and he was just playing around. But a pretty funny video. It had me fooled the first time I watched it. I was like, what? And then, you watch it all the way until the end, and you're like, oh, okay, he's just playing around. But a T-90A. And it's actually got all of the kit on it. The Russians don't get T-90As anymore with all the frou-frou stuff on it. Usually they don't have these little, I believe they're called IRST blocks or sensors or something like that. They don't have these anymore on the tanks, the T-90s they're sending in. So what's impressive to see, they've caught one of Russia's few intact T-90As again, and once again in the Kherson area. And that's showing you how quickly they've been withdrawing from this area altogether. And so with that, unbelievable again. I'm having to really take it easy on my voice tonight because for some reason I strained a muscle on the left side of my neck and I could feel it. And when my voice gets too high, it feels like it's pushing on my blood vessel and it's really, really bad feeling. So sorry about that, everyone. I'm trying to keep the enthusiasm and energy going, but that is kind of putting a little bit of a wrench into things. But moving further on down into the area of Snikarivka, we did see an M270 firing off its rockets and missiles into the distance at Russian forces. And so,
hey, we reached gold.
oh my God, I would blow up my vocal cords right now, but we got a whole stream ahead. $8.4 thousand raised in 27 minutes.
Let's go.
Let's go. I actually almost blew up my voice right there. Let's go. This is unbelievable, and this is pretty freaking amazing. I got to thank every single one of y'all for getting us to this goal, because as we passed $8.3 thousand, this channel passed $500,000 total raise in support of Ukraine. Over the very first day of this war, when the first bombs fell on Kyiv and Putin came out and declared his special military operation, this channel has been covering the Ukrainian war every single day of every single hour and what's been happening. And every single Sunday, for 29 Sundays in a row, we have run these fundraisers. And we have finally made it to $500,000 raised in support, and it's still going. It's gotten up to $9,000 now. Who in the world threw that in?
I think, let's see here. I think Justin Coleman put in a 500.
Gosh. So anyways, getting beyond that, I can't sound too hyped or my voice will explode. It's unbelievable to think that the Lee Spring Army has made it this far, and we are now able to tout as the entirety of our Lee Spring Army community and the Enforcer channel that we've raised exactly $500,000 in support of Ukraine, and we've now almost gotten up to $501,000. It's unbelievable, and I've got to thank each and every one of y'all, and it's a massive keystone moment for this channel. And so with that, we're going to let this video play in celebration of that $500,000 raised of an M270 HIMARS firing about that much in dollars of missiles. And so here's the video. You see it firing off its first missile. And that's the end of the video, and what a way to celebrate $500,000 raised. And of course, with the Kherson area being the Kherson area, for the first time ever, we have actually gotten the reports of massive amounts of ground being taken from the Russians, as 20 total miles in a straight line were taken today. In fact, let's measure out this area, and let's add it to the total ground retaken since the northeastern offensive, and let's add it up and see how big this total combined area is. So, let's go down here to Duchani. Sadly, these lines kind of merge. Hang on, let me zoom out here. These lines kind of merge when you get them too close. I'm sure that's shaving off like a couple of miles of land. But anyways, let's go all the way up to here, and then across in a straight line, and then down this way, and then up this way, and then connect the dots. And polygon 137, another 226 square miles of ground taken today by the Ukrainians in one single swoop. That's a massive amount of ground. It's just, honestly, at this point, it's unbelievable. We're going to actually put this in red, since it was taken on a Sunday of all days, on our Sunday fundraiser. And so with that, unbelievable news again. I'm more than enthralled to see that we are still raising support for Ukraine at this point. And my question to you, Matthew, is should we run a poll to see about raising the goal? Because while that goal was raised, while that goal was put out to raise 500,000, should we see if we can reach even higher as we go on through the night?
Yes, and Enforcer, I'll be totally honest with you. I'm going 1,000 miles an hour right now. I'm not sure if I have the time to put a poll up.
All right, so I'm going to throw the poll. Actually, I already know the answer. The answer is going to be a resounding yes. I'm just going to go real quick and raise that goal. So everyone give me just a second. And let me go over here. Let me go down here. And wow, it's already reached astronomical heights, as we already know. So now it's time to raise it to... How about 15? Well, we'll go with 12. We'll go with 12, and then if we reach 12, we'll up it to 15. So 12,000. Continue, save, and now that should pop up for everyone. And there we go. Now it's $12,000. Can the Lee Spring Army make it another $3,000? I believe wholeheartedly that we can. And I think that every single one of y'all is going to try tonight in a bit of a pissing contest to get us all the way up there. And so, let's do it. Lee Spring Army. I've already thrown in $100 and then another $1,000 thanks to Susan Lismore. So I'm wondering, does anyone want to match $1.1 thousand in a single donation? If you can, I will be blown away, and if you do, we'll be a lot closer to the $12,000 goal. And so with that, we're now going to be moving out of the Kherson area and on into Russia, specifically into Krasnodar, where we saw that more equipment is on its way. The Russians just don't know when to give up, and so they're sending in another train filled with equipment to supply their dying army inside of Ukraine.
Mark!
Oh
Dang,
my
did you see that?
god! Oh my god! We just got 4,000 Canadian dollars
Dang.
from Mark the Orc X Sanguinator.
Let's go, Mark.
$4,000. We just reached a $12,000 goal.
Dang, already.
my
what
God.
in the world?
Good lord. Should we go higher?
I don't know.
I think we should. One second, let me go back over. I actually kept myself on this tab because I thought we'd reach this really soon, but not that quickly. We're going up to 15. So continue save. So everyone, give a massive shout out, a massive thanks. Shower Mark, the Orc X Sanguinator, with loads of thanks and appreciation because his one lone fundraiser donation alone got us to $12,000 in a split second. We went from 9.3 to 12. Next up, 15K. Can we do it or not? Let's find out as this video plays. You see them sending in what appears to be some Malkas, some tanks. But nothing is going to stand in the way of the Lee Spring Army and the Ukrainian army as this...
Wow! Narya's putting
Oh my god!
too.
Return of the legend! Return of the
What in the
legend!
world?
Narya just put in 4,000 US dollars. Jesus!
Yes, sir.
We're up to $16,000. Can we make it even higher? Should we go higher? We've reached the goal. We've reached 2 goals in literally just 2 minutes. What the hell should we do?
Crazy.
This is
This
insane.
is the most wild fundraiser night I have ever seen on this
If
channel.
my vocal cords weren't about to explode, I would be through the roof right now. Oh my god. What should we do? I mean, should we raise the goal? I'm gonna put up a question now because I don't want to keep on moving the finish line. Should we raise the goal? Yes or no? Enforcer, that's a bit of an ambiguous poll. Should we raise the goal? Let's just sit here for a second. I'm sorry if you came here for the news, but we are seeing some unbelievable stuff right now with the fundraiser. Give us all just a second. Let's see what that poll says. It's a resounding yes. That may as well be a Russian referendum with the amount of yeses we just got. So we're now going to be raising the goal all the way up to 20. And I have a feeling that Elon Musk himself is about to come in here and drop down like 100,000 at this point tonight. But let me go through and let me put in 20.
Dang. Thank you, Steve I, for putting in a 500 Canadian. This is crazy tonight, folks. Y'all are going wild on the fundraiser.
All right. It's now at 20. It's now at 20. Are we going to make it to 20 in 5 seconds? I don't know. Can we even cover the news tonight? I don't know. But anyways, moving on from this bit of news, once again, the Russians are sending in more of their armored forces to try and help out the dying army inside of Russia. With that, we're moving on up into Moscow now, and we're going to be checking out a lot of videos of the conscripts that we've gotten today. And so, Honestly, I don't even know at this point what I'm supposed to do, because we just saw Mark the Orc Exsanguinator and Noria. Noria is a fundraising legend, and Mark the Orc Exsanguinator has been helping out this channel to unbelievable degrees over this past week or two, and both of them just threw in, it combined, about $8,000 in support amongst the both of them, and that's the reason why we've gotten to $16,000 already. I feel like we ought to sit here and give them a massive amount of thanks again. Both of them, both Maria and Mark the Orc Exsanguinator. Because if y'all have never seen this...
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh!
Put in a 2,000.
Trister 1 just threw in $2,000. Now we got Trister, Narya, and Mark throwing in thousands of dollars amongst the three of them. They've thrown in $10,000 total. Good God. Oh my God. This is unbelievable. I don't even know where to go anymore. Like, is this even really? Do we even need to cover the Ukraine war news? We will. Oh my God!
Mark put. Oh my! What is going on?
Oh my God! We just reached $23,000. What the hell? Mark threw in another $5.5 thousand in support. What the hell? Oh my God! Mark has now threw in a total combined amount of nearly 10,000 Canadian dollars. Jesus. Jeez. This is unbelievable. We've reached 23,000. Should we raise the goal now?
I don't know.
Maybe we will. We will. The answer is still yes. We're just going to keep looking at that poll for the rest of the night. The answer is yes. We're raising it again. Mark, what in the world? You've just thrown in like $10,000 in a sitting. Okay, we're going up to 20. What are we at now? We're at 23. We'll make it 30. I'm scared to make it 30. I feel like we're going to reach that in seconds. Continue, save. All right, it's now at $30,000. I don't know if we're going to reach that in a few minutes or not, but we're going to try and continue.
Oh, wait. Mark said my auto repeat key must be sticking.
Oh, no. Oh, no. He's going to throw in another one. Ghouls just threw in 100. Oh, my God. I'm scared, y'all. Jeez. He's going to throw in another one. I can't even go on with the news anymore. I'm just waiting in fear that Mark's about to throw in another one. Okay. I don't think he's going to throw in one right now. Hopefully he'll take a few minutes so that I can get through the Moscow segment of the news. But moving on into Moscow, I'm looking over there. I'm just waiting for it to pop up. But moving on into Moscow, is Narya going to try and match him? I'm wondering, Matthew, is there about to be a donor battle in between Narya and Mark?
I don't know.
I wonder. But anyways, let's move on right here to Moscow, where we can see that the conscripts are in somewhat worse for wear condition. Oh my God! 9,000 Canadian in a single donation. We've now reached $30,000. Oh my God. This is unbelievable. What do we do? Do we go up again?
No. Keep it where it's at, Enforcer.
Oh my God. This is, what the hell? Like, that's $20,000 Canadian from just Mark. Mark the Orc Exsanguinator is setting the standard for what a top donor of the night to a fundraiser looks like. Well, you know, Terrence Custer throwing in 100. The freaking fundraiser is through the roof. Good Lord. We're going to throw up another poll. I got to ask, because this night seems like the night we're going to be going and setting records on this channel. Should we raise the goal again? Let's end that poll. I'm going to throw up a new one. Do we raise the fundraiser goal again? Yes or no? Ask the community. I feel like it's going to be unanimous yes again. Oh my Lord. I'm sorry, everyone. We were hardly even getting to news. But like, I hope y'all understand why we're not getting to the news. If y'all see what's going on in the live chat with the donations, it's unbelievable. We've had Trister throw in about 1,000, I think exactly. We had Narya throw in $4,000 US, and we got Mark over here who's thrown in like 20,000 Canadian dollars. Good God! All right. So we're gonna raise the goal. The yeses are getting a little bit lower. It's now down to 70. So we're gonna raise the goal one more time, and then we're gonna continue on with the news. And I'm gonna try and not look over there and see what's happening with it. So we're gonna raise it this time, one last time. Well, I'd say that, and I don't know. We'll raise it to 35K, and we'll revisit that in about 10 to 15 minutes. So, and Matthew just did a yeehaw, and I couldn't even hardly hear it. I heard it through the wall. But let's look at
so loud.
But let's look at this homunculus-looking mix in between Vladimir Putin and Malcolm in the Middle we got in the Russian army. So here's the video.
Владимир Владимирович.
What the hell is this, Matthew?
Кормят срочников
Is that Putin?
хуже, чем положено.
No, it's like Putin's like, I don't even know how to
It's a deep
describe it.
fake.
Maybe it's a deep fake.
Знаете, Сергей,
Yeah, it's a deep fake, yeah.
я неоднократно дискуссировал.
Yeah, because the eyes kind of move around a little weirdly.
В общем, если брать только 83-ю бригаду, отдельную гвардейскую, да, то мы не возьмем все воздушно-десантные войска в целом.
What a weird video. It's a deep fake, it seems, but that just looks wrong. It's like Malcolm in the Middle and Putin mixed together. And I don't know about y'all. That's just weird to me. Anyways, we're going to be moving on from this little clip, and we're going to be moving on to the next one, showing off the best of the best. As they call it, the cream de la cream. The cream of the crop. The finest of the finest. The so much owed by so many to so few. Here is the average Russian conscript. We can see him roaming around in the sludge pit out there, and it looks like, oh, he's gone down into the drink. He's now getting back up, his butt clearly drenched with mud water. And he's trying to get his footing, but he's about to drown in 3 inches of water. And there he goes, he fell again, face down into the mud, and that's the end of the video. And once again, hilarious to see that this guy is just lost in the sauce, and it looks like he's about to be lost in the mud water sauce, if you know what I mean. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the northern area of Moscow, into the area of Korolov, where we saw the mobilization is in full swing, and look how many conscripts they've finally been able to raise in this area. That's a lot of conscripts. That's a lot of conscripts. It's a shame to know that none of them will be well equipped. They may as well just be going to the slaughter. I mean, you know, and at some points you look at all of these men and you're like, wow, you know, we already know that the Russians have run out of modern equipment. They're now starting to give them older Cold War stuff from the 60s and 70s. And none of them are going to stand a chance. They're all being just sent into an endless slaughter pit at this point. They can't even hold the ground they got. And these guys are not going to be helping out with that at all. They're just going to be added to the mix, I guess you could say, and just add to the pile. So with that, I'm going to let this video round out. But man, it's like a giant, massive group of, I don't even know, rabbits, lemmings, I don't know. Well, with that, that's the end of the video. And once again, a pretty wild look at the Russian conscripts that are now flooding into areas like this Russian training camp somewhere in the area of Moscow. Moving on out and up to our northern end news in the city of Moscow, we saw another conscript, this time passed out, dog drunk in a bed, with a bottle of vodka in his pants. And one question I got for you, Matthew, is why in the world do the Russians make the like pockets in their pants big enough that they can fit exactly one bottle of vodka? Is that like an actual design like feature, or was that like, you know, not really intended?
Probably intended.
Probably, because I've never seen pockets that big. And that's a big pocket to be fitting that giant bottle of vodka. See, this guy looks like he also maybe passed out drunk as well. And that's the end of the video, and I gotta say, it is hilarious to see that all the Russian conscripts are of the cream of the cream of the cream of the cream of the crop. I don't think they're going to be making it very far, considering how drunk they are, and if they do, they're going to end up in a hellfire from the Ukrainian armed forces. Moving on out into the direction of Omsk, which is a town in the central area of Russia, we saw more conscripts doing conscript things in the middle of nowhere. And so, here we go. Here's the video. And also, this is, I guess you could say, the condition of the life for the conscripts out there. They're talking about how they're having to buy basic stuff. So anyways, here's the video.
Нас разместили возле ВДВ части в Омске. Короче, сказали, живите как хотите, жгите костры и спите прям на улице, нахуй. Вот. С мужиками решили выпить, само собой, потому что надо согреться. Костер, блядь, сейчас разложимся, спальники. Вот, все норильчане наши, вот они, блядь, костры жгут.
Wow, the Russians are so bankrupt they can't even get these guys in the barracks. They're just living outside.
Ну, человек 500, наверное, если не больше, наверное, есть, я думаю, так. Примерно так есть. Ну, вроде так сишки гоняют, бухло, видимо, люди покупают. Вот. Не, наши. Это, ребят, это наши. Наши, да. Этот. Да не, нормально все, чё. Вот, короче, дрова собираем, короче, тут лес рядом. Рядом вообще нету нихуя, блядь. Так что, кто будет еще призываться с Норильска, берите с собой теплые вещи. Блядь, спальник хоть рожайте, блядь. Коврик вот такой рожайте, блядь. Вообще поебать. Возьмите с собой газовую горелку и газа в баллонах. Никто вас проверять в аэропорту не будет. Всем там похуй. Хоть, блядь, с собой автомат возьмете, там не насрать, блядь, наверное. Так что жрачки берите, блядь. Потому что хуй узнает, заселят нас завтра. Нет, сказали завтра. Ну, я как слышал, что чуваки на той стороне уже неделю нахуй так живут. Так что думайте про это, так что... Ну, нашли другие.
What in the hell? Like, did y'all hear what this guy just said? He said, if you're getting conscripted, make sure to buy yourself a sleeping bag and some warm clothes, because you're going to be thrown outside in the middle of the forest and told to make a fire and just hang out there until you're sent somewhere. What in the world? Like, this type of crap is something medieval. It's literally medieval. That's like raising the king's levy and then telling them, all right, go hang out in the camp, cook some fire, like get some fires going. Just make sure to stay warm or something until we figure out where we're going. This crap is medieval. This is the second best, according to the Russians, the second best army in the world right here. Having guys freeze to death in the middle of a field. With fires going because they don't have any barracks to put them in. And they said the other guys over there, they've been around those fires for a week. And so it seems like there are no available barracks, and these guys are still waiting for the supposed barracks that will be available for them very soon, which is really never. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from this little clip in Omsk and to Kazakhstan. As many of y'all know, a lot of people in Russia don't really support the war, and especially they do not support the war when they're finally called upon to fight it, although some of these guys have been saying that they'll fight for Russia the entire time until it comes to them. Then they want to jump ship. People are trying to jump ship so badly near the borders of Kazakhstan and Georgia that they're camping out there overnight. In fact, the traffic jams are now dozens of miles long at both countries. In fact, it's gotten so bad that some Russian citizens have resorted to returning to the Wild West as they build teepees out of sarin wrap and some sticks to hang out in while they wait to cross the border. And here's a video showing some of these teepees near the Kazakhstan border. Very primitive. Once again, trash everywhere. And so with that,
what in the world?
I mean, I'm saying and so with that, but I feel like this does require a little bit of commentary here. what in the hell is this? Like, what is
What are
it?
these people doing hanging out over there to the right?
What they're doing is they're trying to get across the border into Kazakhstan. And that's what this whole entire traffic jam is. It's a whole bunch of people trying to get into Kazakhstan, but it's been taking so long that someone pulled out saran wrap, gathered up some branches, and made teepees out of them to hang out in and sleep in until they can finally get up there to cross the border. That's how desperate Russians are to get out of Russia, is that they're willing to do desperate-looking things like this. And I've got to say, it looks pretty sad when you think about it, that a lot of Russians do not support this war so much that they would rather attempt to freeze in the middle of a field with saran wrap sticks around them instead of staying in Russia and potentially becoming a conscript, or their family at watching them get shipped off into a war they never really supported, and they end up dying there, and these kids are without fathers, the wife is without a husband, and things like that. It's a sad reality, and it shows you how bad things really are getting inside of Russia. And you just can't see this war going on much longer. I don't think anyone can. I mean, hell, even the mainstream news now has gotten on to, I guess you could say, my line of thinking, saying that this war will be won by Ukraine. It's only a matter of time at this point. Now, because I did take a look at the mainstream news today, all of the articles coming out today are saying stuff like that. It's almost inevitable at this point. Ukrainian victory is an assured, I guess you could say, thing at this point, and it's just a matter of waiting. The Russians, of course, will not accept this until the very end, and we can see that this is starting to pay the price on these average Russian citizens and them having to flee the country. With that, we're now going to be moving out of Russia, and from all of this interesting news showing what's been going on inside of Russia altogether, and we're now going to be moving on into our location unknowns and our northern, I guess you could say, Donbass, well, northern Kharkiv news. But before we get to all of that, we're going to take a quick pause to address the fundraiser and to also answer 3 questions from the chat. I don't think we have any polls to go over whatsoever. And also, due to time reasons, I would have to ask you, Matthew, that we try and keep the polls to a low minimum. So each time we have a question segment,
No worries about that.
Good. All right.
I've been so busy tonight, I haven't had a chance.
All right. And so with that, let's get on into the fundraiser. So what do we got, Matthew? And who, of course, we know who the biggest of the biggest have been tonight, but who else is throwing in massive amounts of support to help this fundraiser get to $32,000?
All right, folks. So for our first question segment of the stream, it's been absolutely insane tonight. The donations have been rolling in like crazy. The amount of support is rolling in like crazy, and the questions are rolling in like crazy too. Absolutely wild night for me. I've been going 1,000 miles an hour, but man, we have reached $32,000 of the $35,000 goal, and it's been raised, what, 2 or 3 times now?
It has. It's been raised almost, I think, 4 times. We went from 8.3 to 10. Oh, no, 8.3 to 12, and then we went from 12 to 16, and then we went from 16 to, I think, 20. Then we went from 20 to 25, and then I think 25 to 30. Well, no, 35. I'm sorry. So yeah,
wild stuff. I gotta say,
insane.
And thank you to everybody that's donated. We're about to read off all of our top donors, but before I begin, I just want to say that while we appreciate the massive support for the fundraiser, we also appreciate all of our smaller donors as well, because without the smaller donors, we still would not have reached $33,000, and we're getting up close to $35,000. This is a lot of money for one night. The revived soldiers of Ukraine are about to be shocked when they see this large amount come in. They're about to be reviving a lot of soldiers, I'll tell you that. But anyways, Enforcer, I do have that list of top donors when you are ready.
And with that, let's hear it.
All right, and real quick, I got to add one more to the spreadsheet real quick. There we go. Let's see. All right, so folks, this is an extremely long... I got to add another one. Let me get this one in here real quick. All right, so this is a very long list, folks. Oh, man. Come on, spreadsheet. Don't lock up on me now. Okay, it's still locking up on me. Just a second. It's trying to unfreeze. So, like I was saying, folks, it just unfreezed. So there we go. It's a very long list, so bear with me. I'm going to be calling out names for a good minute. Up first, I want to recognize our huge ones once more. We have that $9,000 donation from Mark, the Orc X Sanguinator, which I think is a record for the largest single donation ever put in on the channel. Is that right, Enforcer?
It is. That is the biggest
Insane.
single donation that's ever been put in.
Wild. And also, next up, we have another donation from Mark, who puts in a $5,500 donation. Absolutely wild. Also, we have a $5,000 donation from Smell Me Fingers, who could not donate because he's in Australia. So instead, he donated to United 24 through the link in the description. So that is also tremendous. Thank you very much for that, Smell Me Fingers. That is very generous. And also, up next, we have another $4,000 donation from Mark once again. I think Mark's put in almost $20,000, getting very close to it just by himself. That is insane. Mark, you are extremely generous, and you have a really good heart, and thank you very much for that. That will really help out Ukraine a bunch. And up next, we have that $4,000 donation from Narya. Then we have a $2,000 donation from Trister1, and a $1,000 donation from Just Sackett, and that $1,000 donation from Susan Lismore. And then we have some smaller ones under that I'm going to recognize in a moment. But man, Enforcer, we've had some huge ones tonight.
We have, and I gotta tell you all this, especially our two largest supporters tonight, Narya and also Mark the Orc Exsanguinator, that you all have made tonight an incredibly special night. Tonight we were only supposed to cross the $500,000 threshold, and that goal was at $8.3 thousand. We passed that within 25 minutes of the stream being on air. And then, immediately after that, we reached a $12,000 goal and every other goal, thanks, most importantly, to both of y'all who have just sent in. Of course, Mark sent in nearly 20,000 Canadian dollars in support, and Narya sent in $4,000. Narya sent in tens of thousands of dollars over all the fundraisers, and so I've got to thank both of y'all so much for helping out our fundraisers and in the end helping to support Ukraine. Of course, this is run through the YouTube Give system, which sends 100% of y'all's support to these nonprofits, and they also cover the fees needed to make sure to process them and then send them over. And so y'all together have sent over nearly $25,000 of support to Ukraine. And to that, I've got to thank both of y'all. And I got to thank every single one of y'all. Even if y'all have sent in what seems tonight to be smaller ones, but they're still incredibly large in the 500s, the 250s, the hundreds, and even down on into the 50s. That's a massive amount of support that y'all are giving as well. And each little bit helps massively to make sure that Ukrainian soldiers that are heroically fighting, getting hurt, and sometimes dying on these front lines trying to retake this land and liberate the suffering Ukrainians behind these lines can get the medical treatment that they deserve for the sacrifice that they've gone through. And so I got to thank you all so much once again. And with that, can we read off the last of those donors, and then we're going to try and quickly speed through 3 questions from the chat to make sure that we can keep with the news.
All right.
Oh, my Lord.
Oh, man.
We just got an anonymous donor of 1,000 Canadian right there.
Dang.
Oh,
thank
my
you, Anonymous.
Lord.
And also, while we're thinking about it, thank you to all the anonymous donors tonight as well, because we've had some pretty big ones that have come from Anonymous as well, and we do appreciate it very much. And y'all like to keep your names secret, but I wish we could recognize you.
And I wish we could too. I mean, this is unbelievable. But with that, let's get on into recognizing everyone else real quick.
All right. I'm about to recognize almost 60 or 70 donations, so bear with me, folks. It's a whole bunch. Up first, we have several $500 donations. The first one is from Justin Coleman. The next one is from Steve I. And the next one is from Just Chillin'. Also, we have a $250 donation from Peter Hansen and 2 $200 donations. The first one is from Paolo Cardini and Ryan Whitehouse. Then we have a $150 donation from Jack Ray. And then numerous $100 donations. The first one being from James Reyes. The next one being from Robert Harrington. Also, Brian Ivy, Sean Collins, My Left Foot, Jack Ray, Guns in Florida, BC Skyman, Andrew Mendias, Oates Air, Amy Atkins, Boyan Bijanov.
Oh my God. Mike D just sent in 1,000 US dollars, just blowing us over the goal of $35,000. We've reached like the 5th goal we've had tonight, thanks to Mike D. And Anonymous just sent in 100. We have just passed $35,000. This is the biggest fundraiser that we've had in months. And I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say anymore.
Enforcer, I'm only like halfway through these donations, so let me finish reading these off real quick to give recognition to all of our donors. So up next, we have that $100 super chat from Will Riley, also known as Mr. Dick Cheney. We also have another one from BC Skyman. We have another one from Trister1, Ghouls, Retail Mix USA, Gantech, Benjamin Rude, William Allen, Fatty Liver, Also, we have several $50 donations, and this will round out the calling out of the top donors of the night. Heather Fitzgibbon, Nick Gaspy, Michelle Esquera, Bubba Hotep, Ibram, GTO Joe 04, Malachi, Debbie B, Benjamin Rude, Trister1, Dad Good, Appalachia Run, Richard Bell, Mom Cat Max, Super Bonker 9000, Rumple Stilchin, also Bradley Barrows, Cindy Mitchell, Axel K, Justice Ryan, Steve I once again, BR Bowden, RC, Oddpoint, Mr. M, Greg Carrier, Relax Camera, Mandy Carroll, also Ford GT500 SS, really cool car by the way, John Webster, H2O Barry Matt, Randall Turner, I feel like an auctioneer at this point, also Blackhawk NZ, and finally, out of that long list, Charlie J. Sohan. And thank you very much to all of you for your support, and we do appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, I'm going to let you take it back from here.
And I've got to say, I don't even know what to say anymore tonight. I got to thank every single one of y'all. And that's all I can say, really. I mean, I'm blown away. We've had, our fundraisers have gotten smaller over time. I don't know if any of y'all have noticed, but we used to be able, on our first opening fundraisers in the first, second, or third month of the war, we were usually able to get up to 20,000 each night at least, and up to 25. But over time, they started to go down. And of course, we never lost enthusiasm. Any amount of support raised is support that's helping the Ukrainians. But this fundraiser right here is one of the biggest ones. I believe it may be the second largest one in channel history, and it's 222 days into this war. And so, thank you all so much once again for getting us to this landmark night, on this very landmark day right here, as we watch the Ukrainians still retaking ground across the country in massive upsets to the Russians and the Russian military. But with that, we're not going to stay on this much longer. A lot of people came here for the news. I see a lot of people complaining about that for some reason. Watching thousands of dollars of support coming in to help out Ukrainians isn't enough for some people. They still want to hear the news. So with that, we're going to get on to answering 3 questions from the chat. We're going to try and make it as brief as possible so that way we can get right back to the news. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and first up, we have a question from James Reyes, who says, with winter on the way, how prepared is the Russian army? LOL, I know the answer, wink wink, but just wanted your thoughts.
And can you reread that again real quick? Because I was just looking at the live chat and I saw a question that drew my attention away real quick, but can you read that again?
With winter on the way, how prepared is the Russian army? And I want your thoughts.
The Russian army is not prepared. They're not even prepared enough to have their brand new conscripts and Omsk have barracks to live in. They're living out in the middle of the woods with campfires. And that tells you how little prepared the Russians are in Ukraine. In fact, I heard a news article today, although this is something that you can't confirm, that a Russian Duma member said it's unbelievable. It's like 1.5 million units of winter uniforms went missing. And apparently, according to this news article, they were claiming that 1.5 million articles of winter clothing that the Russian army had stockpiled over the years had just gone missing, and no one knows where those clothes have wound up. I know where they've wound up. They've wound up being sold to people on the internet. I've seen it before, but I don't think they're prepared at all to make that a very short answer. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our next question, we have one from, let's see here, Duncan VR, who says, is Ukraine getting increased air support from abroad and now dominating parts of the skies in Ukraine? Ba ba, woof woof.
And I thank you for the question, and also to answer it, the Ukrainians are not getting a massive amount of air support from anyone. In fact, they haven't really gotten any support for their Air Force over the entirety of the war, and that kind of tells you this. Even if the West doesn't support the Ukrainians in a specific field like the Air Force, they're still able to dominate, because right now they own the skies over Ukraine. It's uncontested. The Ukrainians have air superiority both by their ground air defense forces and the Air Force itself. And so going off of that, the answer to the first part of that question is no, they don't have any support from the West for their Air Force, but that doesn't even matter. They're still out there dominating, and that's the most crazy part of it. It doesn't matter whether the West supports them in the Air Force or not. They're still going to win. And so with that, I hope that answers your question. And also, I knew that's a trademark Duncan VR question, considering you put in the moo moo baba. But with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're moving on into the next bit of news.
And the final question of this segment goes to Jasper World Order, who says, do you guys know about the Ukraine surrender hotline that is being spammed with Russian calls offering to give up?
I have not heard about that hotline. I wouldn't doubt... Oh, yikes. For some reason, when I turn my head a certain way while I'm talking, I'm not going to get too much into it because Matthew's a little squeamish about this kind of stuff, but it hurts very badly. But haven't heard about that hotline. I wouldn't doubt its existence because it seems like it would make a lot of sense for something like that to exist. Usually there is something like that at some point in most wars and most modern wars, but I haven't heard about it, and I haven't heard about it being flooded with calls for that reason. And so with that, I hope that it answers that question fairly well. And now, everyone, it is time to return back to the news. Of course, I thank everyone so much for their support of this fundraiser, and if you'd like to, while we have reached the goal, y'all can still throw in support if you would like. I don't feel like we need any general orders tonight to I guess I could say muster up support for the fundraiser. It's already done far too well. And so with that, we're moving on into the next segment of news, starting off with our location unknowns, where we're going to watch a very nice, a very beautiful Russian ammunition explosion. Here's the video. When you see the drone looking at the tree line, it dropped a bomblet, and... oof. A little bit of white smoke, and it looks like another ammo depot was knocked out. A little bit of a smaller one, but still, it doesn't matter whether it's small or large or what. All that matters is that another one was blasted. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next segment of news, where we saw a Caesar firing its gun at night, which was cool as hell. Also, one thing that's really neat is that you can see the little LCD screen that's on the back near the actual gun that's used, and it's lit up in the night, and that's all you can see right now, but you're about to see the whole thing. Oh, is that cool or what?
Dang. That is pretty cool.
So with that, that's the end of the video, and what a cool look at a Caesar SPG. I love the Caesar SPGs. It's one of my favorite SPGs that the Ukrainians have been provided. Of course, I go through that giant slew as to why, but I think y'all have heard that enough, so I'll save y'all the trouble of hearing that. But still, I love to see that the Ukrainians are using those beautiful and very well-performing French SPGs. Moving on into our next bit of location unknown news, we saw a video of Ukrainian forces coming under some heavy fire today. Apparently, the location was not shared, that's why it's in the location unknowns, but still an interesting video. Also, I gotta mute it because there's rock music playing, but we can see them looking around and fires have broken out all around them. We now see them going into this garage where there's some kind of a Ukrainian van. Now they're in the back having a bit of a smoke break. Waving to the camera. Also, Papa responded to when I said it was cool as hell, Matthew. He said, hell is not cool, it's where Russians are. That was actually a pretty good one. I like that. Maybe I'm going to have to look into the live chat a little bit more to see some of those good jokes, because they deserve some call-outs. That was a good one. We now see them climbing over a barricade and on to another house, and we can see what appeared to be shell damage of a shell that fell inside this house. Yeah, that's what happened. It just went through the floors. And so that's the end of the video, but it's still pretty amazing to see that the Ukrainians endure this day by day, and they're still winning this war, and the morale has never been higher. Moving on into our next bit of location unknown news, we also saw some intense combat occurring in between a Stugna unit and also apparently some Russian infantry in the distance. And so, without further ado, here's that video. We can see the helmet cam showing the feet of the Ukrainian soldier. And now we can hear the Cyberpunk 2077 music playing. In 2077, what makes someone a criminal? Being a Russian. They're now moving through what appears to be a small wrecked village. Wait a minute, actually, hang on. I swear that we've seen this before, where the little tracer round bounced off the backpack. We have seen this before, I believe. Yep. It didn't click with me earlier, but we have seen this. And so we're going to be skipping this video. It was seen about, I believe, 2 to 3 weeks ago. And so we're now moving on into the next bit of location unknown news, where we saw a little secret Slava Ukrainian. Some of y'all may know about Victoria's Secret. And it's no secret what Victoria's Secret is. But one thing that's been pretty funny is that it appears that Russians are starting to get behind the concept of having outward appearances but having soft, tender insides. Let me explain to y'all why I'm saying this and why it kind of sounds a little weird. This is a Russian prisoner of war that's been captured. And in the process of being captured, he tore his pant leg where you could see his underwear. And also, if we mute that trash music and watch this guy look down, he's wearing the armed forces of Ukraine's underwear as a Russian. You can see the little cross right there.
No way.
No joke. He's actually wearing them. He was captured wearing Ukrainian underwear. That is sad. That's also hilarious. So with that, that's the end of that little video, and I hope y'all enjoyed taking a look at a Russian soldier's undergarments and seeing that they too, deep down inside, in secret, they also support Ukraine. They're wearing their underwear. And so with that, we are moving on into the next bit of news, where we can then see the Russian Lend-Lease in action again. This time, they're giving as much equipment as they can to the Ukrainians. One second, let me make sure there's no copyright music. So we can see a BTR-82 captured, a BMP-1, an MTLB, another BTR-82, a KAMAZ, another BMP-2, and wow, the Russians just gave over a whole BTG to the Ukrainians for free. What else could the Russians ever give the Ukrainians? Like, I don't know, their land back. That would probably be a good start. But I guess the vehicles are a step in the right direction, and hopefully in the future, we'll see the Russians commit the ultimate act of goodwill, which is returning all of Ukraine's land that they had before 2014. Moving on from this bit of location unknown news, and on to our last one, we saw a Ukrainian Bushmaster, of course the Bushmaster's being provided by Australia, towing away a brand new BTR-80 that they had captured from the Russians. And so, here's that video. Also, they got music playing. But one thing that's nuts, Matthew, is I never realized how big the Bushmaster is compared to a BTR-80. Look how big that thing is. It dwarfs the BTR.
It really is.
Yeah,
it looks like it's maybe bigger than an MRAP.
It kind of does.
Or at least the same size.
Honestly, it looks like the same size as an Abrams. Of course, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but still. And would you look at that? Another BTR-80 for Ukraine. I'm telling you, it's like the Russians really just want Ukraine to have it all. And it looks like they're going to give it all to them. And so that's the end of our last bit of Location Unknown news. And now it's time for us to move on from the Location Unknowns and on into the northeastern area. And before I move on into there, we are going to do this a little bit as a special thing tonight, considering that I haven't seen a massive amount of support come in, and 3 questions is no point in breaking up the flow of the news for tonight, because we've got a lot of it that's impressive to cover. And so, just as a quick note, Matthew, we will be cutting out the second question segment. We'll just be covering the rest of the news in its entirety in a whole block, and then we'll answer all of the questions in one giant fell swoop at the very end of the stream. It seems like a lot of people would probably enjoy that better. So we're going to do that just for tonight, but once we get back on stream on Tuesday, we'll go back to the normal 3 separate question segments, where we have a second one, and then the final one at the end of the night. But for tonight, we won't be having a second question segment. We'll only be having the one at the end, but we'll answer all of the questions that were supposed to be answered in the second one. Moving on into northern Kharkiv, into the area of Drovichina, we saw another BMP get captured by the Ukrainians today. And also, we can tell it's a Russian BMP because you can see the left-behind remnants of what was the Russian soldiers.
Оце наша движуха.
See the little Z. Oh, man, isn't it nice? And you know what's even better? It's a BMP-2M. I don't even know how many BMP-2Ms the Russians have. I assume it's not a lot. How many BMP-2Ms are there? Let's see here. BMP-2. Let's go here. Let's scroll down. Let's see if we get a specific number on the BMP-2Ms right here. Let's see. So, fortunately, it doesn't look like they give us an exact number. But one thing I can assure y'all is that it's not a lot of them. Sadly, I can't get y'all an exact number, but it's a decent. It's not a lot of BMP-2Ms that are out there, and the Russians have once again lost another. And so with that, we're going to be moving out of the northeastern Kharkiv area and on down into the counteroffensive area near to Lyman. Today we saw something that I never really believed we'd see again, but of course, the Kadyrovites never surprise us. They have a sheep following them around on the front lines.
Baba.
Bye. Bye.
Duncan, where are you?
Duncan, we need you now. There's the sheep. You can see it right there. It's right there in that little dugout. Highly questionable, because there's no reason for an army to carry around live animals for food anymore. In fact, there is no reason at all for that. So, you can kind of see that, yeah, some very questionable things are probably going on there. With that, that's the end of that video, and once again, the Kadyrovites are not having a fun time in that area of the front lines as we speak. Moving on down in the direction of Makivka, we did see that the Ukrainians shot down another Ka-52 today as well. So here's the video of an infrared camera showing this Ka-52 get shot down. See the Ka-52 right there flying over the tree line. We see a little bit of smoke coming off of it. Oh, wait a minute. We were looking at the wrong Ka-52. Silly me. I mean, I need to get this stuff right. Anyways. So we see the Ka-52 that's about to get shot right there. We now see it turn into the Northern Star, which will be guiding the rest of the Russians on their way out of Ukraine. And as the fireball slams into the ground, its wingman flies directly over it and observes that 2 Russian helicopter pilots will not be coming home, and their Ka-52 will also be lost forever. Another significant loss for Russia's helicopter forces, as far as we can tell, around half of Russia's Ka-52 force, or even more, has been destroyed over the course of this war. And so with that, that's the end of the video. And once again, it looks like the Russians aren't having a fun time in the area of Lyman. Also, another thing, got some more pictures today of the Highway of Death out of Lyman. Sadly, I can't show them to y'all, of course, because of the whole thing with YouTube. And apparently, although I never saw it, and Matthew never saw it last night, there was a body somewhere in one of the videos, just one of them, that you could hardly even see, and that got us an age restriction. So, just letting y'all know, we can't show that kind of stuff on YouTube. But if you want to find it, I promise you it's out there. I'm not lying. The entire side of the road was littered with Russian bodies and vehicles that had been destroyed on their way out of Lyman. And so, going off of that, I'm sure that the 57th Motorized Rifle Brigade, which was one of the brigades that certainly retreated out of Lyman, is still most likely not recovering from their losses yet, and are probably in full route in this area. This may as well be a breach in the Russian front lines. Moving on to the area of the road in between Lyman and Drobshiche, I believe is the name of it, we saw the 81st Air Mobile Brigade conduct a ambush on the Russians. Sadly, we won't be able to show this video as it was deleted by the moderators on this subreddit where we found it, but it was a pretty interesting video to see. Unfortunately, we cannot show it. Moving on into the next bit of news, in between Zarichne and Crimea, we saw a Ukrainian, a German-made, Ukrainian-operated Panzerhaubitze 2000 firing a 6-shot salvo, and I gotta say, are these things cool looking or what? I call these things an apartment on wheels, because that turret's about big enough that it could be considered a small New York apartment. Oh, that's cool. And look at that fire rate. It's impressive. This whole entire SPG is really impressive. You know, at this point, it's firing 3 shots. I wonder how hot a Panzerhaubitze barrel gets from just firing 3 or 4 shots. And there's its 6th shot. And now the Panzerhaubitze ceases firing after firing off 6 accurate and deadly shots of NATO 155mm artillery shells. These things, we're not exactly sure which kind they are. The Panzerhaubitze has a wide variety. In fact, all Western 155mm guns have a wide variety of ammunition that they can fire off. But one thing's for certain, I don't think we can mince words with this. This thing is shredding up some Russians downrange. With that, we're now going to be moving on to our next little video from the area of Crimea. Now, some people have been saying that the Ukrainian armed forces have not made it to Crimea, but based off of this Russian reporter who says that the Ukrainians are outside of Crimea, I would have to say they have. So with that, here's the video of this Russian reporter now realizing the reality of living in a country on the losing end of a war. Here's the video. You can hear the rounds exploding on the Russians just down the way.
Ствольной артиллерии. Противник бьет, видимо, по колоннам, которые пытаются заходить сейчас сюда для организации обороны на Лиманском направлении.
We hear another one. And so with that, that's the end of the video, and it's wonderful to see that this guy is now realizing that, oh man, it's not as peachy as the Russians really made it out to be back at home. And they're not even making it out to be that peachy anymore either. And so with that, that's the end of that little video. And we're now moving on into the next clip, where we saw some Russians getting hit in the east, somewhere in the area of Crimea. Someone said he had Alabama teeth. Let me go back real quick and let me take a look at his teeth. I'm, of course, an Alabamian.
Alabama teeth.
Let me make sure that he doesn't have the cousin teeth. Let's look at this again.
Идет обстрел кременной и ствольной артиллерии.
He does. He has meth lab teeth.
Видимо, по колоннам, которые
It looks like this guy is having a little bit too much of the I don't even know what to call it. I'm trying to come up with a funny name for the thing, but yeah, he's got some bad teeth. I will back that up. He needs to probably brush them a little bit more, but honestly, it's too late for that. Anyways, we can see the Belarusian Volat Battalion, which is of course, I guess you could say, a foreign legion unit of the Ukrainian army, destroying a Russian position with a heavy mortar. Here's the video of that. See them getting the mortar shells ready. We now hear the cool music being cued in. We now see them hanging around and then firing it. Now see them adjusting the mortar, firing again. Now we can see those mortar shells hitting the Russians downrange. And now we get a little fireworks show from the Russians. Once again, that's their signal that it was a dead on mark and it's time for a show. And so with that, that's the end of the video. And it's nice to see that the Belarusian volunteers are still bearing down on the Russians. With that, that's the end of that video. And we're now going to be moving out of the counteroffensive area. Of course, ground still being made, and the Russians clearly in retreat. Moving on into the area of Seversk, we did see another M270 firing off its MLRS missiles earlier today. And so, here's the video of this beautiful M270, provided by the Western allies that are in support of Ukraine in its effort to destroy more Russian ammunition depots, communication lines, and supply hubs. There we go, a couple of more. Just so many of them. So much progress, so much potential in each one of these missiles. And so that's the end of the video, and I gotta say, I really like that the Ukrainians are still using MLRS missiles, of course of the HIMARS variety. These things are deadly accurate, and in fact, I don't even need to really talk about it much. I'll just show you all the end result of what they did today. Here's the HIMARS, here's the base that was destroyed by this HIMARS strike. Well, I call it a HIMARS, but it's an M270. Anyways, here's the video. In fact, the fires that raged after these missiles exploded were so hot that they actually melted the aluminum on the ground.
Це, брат, привіт.
See all the melted aluminum right there?
Тобі роботу Хаймерса. Оце Хаймерс так бабахнув, що усьо нахер, блядь, згоріло. І притом так горіли спеціальні якісь алюмінієві цистерни, чи що аж чистий алюміній поплавлений, бачиш? Все повигорало.
Just look at that. The Ukrainians paved the ground with aluminum. That's got to be futuristic.
Все повигорало, тут бахнуло. А це тобі так, і все, погоріли всі склади.
This entire depot has gone up in flames. Nothing's left.
І тут вся їхня база нахрен орковська. І орки тут усі повлітучувалися просто, і трупів немає. От. Це понтон остався один. Це тобі все. Рашистський мір, блядь. Такі от. Це тобі. Це нам дозволили сфотографувати. Все, щоб ми побачили. Оце була велика база орків. І вже її немає тут. О.
And so with that's the end of the video, and it's nice to see that the Ukrainians once again plastered another Russian base and hit it so heavily, and the fires burned so hot that the vehicles have now melted into literal puddles on the ground. Moving on from that video and further down the front lines into Donetsk, we saw the cream of the crop of the now annexed DPR and LPR troops moving up towards the front lines. And I gotta say, this guy is the crop of the cream. The real cream of the crop. The real cream of wheat.
I'm sorry.
Let's go back and watch that again. The guy's like a crazy homeless man.
I can't.
We've won. Everyone, we've won. That's it. Well, it's over. But with that's the end of that video. That's hilarious.
I saw somebody say Golem.
Oh my god! Let's watch this one more time. This is a classic right here. This will be in the memory of the Lee Spring Army forever. One more time, and then we'll move on. Oh my god!
Look at him pointing the gun at the guy filming.
Yeah. Oh my lord. I don't even know what to say about this. It's just hilarious as hell, and I had to include it as soon as I saw it earlier tonight. And so with that, we're moving on into the next clip. Further down the line, actually out of the Donetsk area. That's the only bit of news we got from all of Donetsk today, was this crazy man. And so now moving on into the area of Pavlivka and I guess you could say Yakovlivka, we saw some Russians getting hit. And it was nice to see. In fact, I could watch it twice, but here's the video. Also, they got some rock music playing, but you can see these Russians here getting into this BMP-3. Now, the Ukrainians played this the smart way. They waited for all of them to get into BMP-3, and then the BMP-3 moves a little bit, starts moving down the field a little bit more, and a little bit more, and it looks like it's about to get out of here, but no. Stugna. And Fopeng. And it took out all of the Russian infantry and the BMP as well in one fell swoop. It was really smart for them to wait for
Was
it
that
to...
a turret toss?
I think maybe. No, I think that's like some kind of like a little smoke grenade or something like that. It's not a turret, but I was thinking it may have been. But with that, that's the end of the video. And it's nice to see that the Ukrainians play out this whole thing incredibly smart. Make sure to wait for the most opportune moment, because that little Stugna attack, if it had happened earlier before all of those Russians had gotten to the vehicle, it wouldn't have been as effective as it had been if it waited for that exact moment. So, once again, showing the intelligence level of the average Ukrainian soldier.
Wait, unfortunately, I think that was a turret toss.
Really?
I see a lot of people in the live chat saying it was a turret toss.
Interesting.
If it was, that was like a 10 out of 10. Perfect form. Straight up and back down.
If it was perfect form. It went like in a 90-degree angle straight upwards. It went straight vertical and then just kind of came down in a nice, graceful arch, I guess you could say. So quite good. I would give it a 9.5 out of 10, I would have to say. And so with that, we're moving on down into the village of Vyskopillyia, where we saw the Ukrainian POV, and this is why we're showing it. We would feel that it's violating operational security, but apparently this video is no longer relevant. It apparently happened about a day ago, and this is a Ukrainian drone viewing the Ukrainian offensive on the town of Vyskopillyia. And so, without further ado, here's the video. Once again, the same music playing. I don't know why both the Russians and the Ukrainians have like the preferred music to play on their clips. But we can see the, I'm assuming, Ukrainian column moving forward. And now I know what this is about to be. This is about to be that Russian tank that storms forward and hits one of them. We can see, wait a minute, hang on. The Russians didn't show that. Wait a minute. Did you notice that, Matthew? The Ukrainians blasted a Russian tank in that tree line. Right there, you can see it's a Russian tank looking straight at the Ukrainians. Huh. They didn't show that, did they? The Russian tank's now ablaze. And now we can see the Russian tank storming forward and hitting the Ukrainian tank. A bit of a tit for tat. Now it doesn't look like a loss for the Ukrainians. It looks like it was an even exchange. One Russian main battle tank lost for one Ukrainian main battle tank lost. We now see the Ukrainian tank backing out of the tree line and ensuring that the retreat is organized as the rest of the Ukrainian column moves away. And also notice the intelligence, once again, of the Ukrainian tank crews is that they face the front of the tank, the strongest part, towards the Russians instead of the typical Russian strategy, which is to turn the whole entire tank around and start driving away with the rear side, the weakest side of the tank, facing the enemy. We now see the Ukrainian column moving back out. It looks like another APC was hit on the retreat. It looks like a Ukrainian APC has pulled alongside to screen the, I guess you could say, evacuation of the hit APC and keep everyone on the move. And with that, that's the end of the video. And this is another reason why. And we don't show a lot of videos like that show a battle turn out where Ukrainians take losses. There's not a lot of them like that out there. But one thing is that you can say that is certainly true, is that Ukrainian soldiers are some of the bravest in the world, especially that we've seen right now. To sit there, unlike the Russians, and to be as organized and as well thought out and well collected as possible, to face their tanks in the correct direction during a retreat, to screen for APCs that have been hit, and to make sure that they take care of their wounded and the injured that may be inside that APC, shows you how brave and how honorable these Ukrainian soldiers are, and how much they're willing to put on the line. They're willing to put their lives and their entire future on the line to make sure to take care of each other and their whole nation. And for that reason, I have to say that the Ukrainians set the standard for bravery and valor in the modern world, and especially in the modern war. With that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip of news. Further down the line, past Vyskopillyia, and all the way out of the southern front, as we now move towards Kherson, and then I realize that we only have one last bit of news to cover, and it's not even in Ukraine, it's actually in Turkey. In case you all don't know, the Turks are providing a lot of equipment to the Ukrainians, both in terms of Bayraktars and other forms of, I guess you could say, air power and also ground power as well. They've handed over Kirpi armored cars, among many other things. One of the things that the Turks have now provided to the Ukrainians is a brand new Corvette. Not a Corvette car, but a Corvette ship. Here you can see the launching. Actually, a picture of the corvette that is about to be launched, and in the future, this thing will be handed over to the Ukrainian Navy, probably not at this very instant, considering that it would most likely be destroyed on its way to Ukraine, but it will be handed over in the future, and this thing will become the flagship of the Ukrainian Navy. A very nice sight to see, and it's good to know that the Ukrainians are investing in the future of their country and making sure to take care of what matters most. And so with that is the end of all of the news we have for today. And so we're now going to be moving up to Kyiv to listen to the speech from President Zelensky before we wrap up this unbelievable and groundbreaking night of news. And so, without further ado, here's the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky on day 222 of the war.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Важливі події відбулись сьогодні в Туреччині в рамках візиту першої леді України, керівника Офісу президента та інших наших представників. В присутності Олени був спущений на воду перший корвет для нашої держави із тих, що мають бути побудовані турецькою стороною. Корвет «Гетьман Іван Мазепа». Його будівництво почалося ще в 2021 році і у визначений час буде завершено. Вважаю дуже символічним, що він отримав саме таке ім'я. Попри століття російської брехливої пропаганди, історична правда і справедливість все одно перемагають. І немає жодної причини, щоб зірвався наш проект будівництва нового флоту для України. Ми реалізуємо всі намічені плани. Наша мета – це створення в Україні повноцінної бази для обслуговування і будівництва кораблів. Сьогодні ж Андрій Єрмак разом з українською делегацією відвідав потужності компанії «Байкар», яка виробляє, зокрема, і для нас добре усім відомі «Байрактари». Від імені усіх українців Андрій подякував керівникам компанії та вручив голові ради директорів Сельчуку Байрактару орден за заслуги, яким той був відзначений до річниці незалежності України. Однак і ця зустріч не символічна, вона цілком практична. Ми готуємось до створення в Україні навчального центру і заводу компанії «Байкар», а також спільного виробництва авіадвигунів. Обов'язково реалізуємо і ці проекти. Україна завжди була і буде одним з європейських центрів військової та авіаційної промисловості. І я пишаюсь, що можу сказати ці слова абсолютно впевнено і обґрунтовано за підсумками вже 221-го дня повномасштабної війни Росії проти нашої держави. Щось у когось пішло не за планом. І цими зустрічами наша дипломатична активність сьогодні зовсім не вичерпується. Відбулась також зустріч перших леді України і Туреччини. І я дякую президенту Ердогану і його дружині Еміне за незмінну підтримку наших зусиль для повернення миру. Перша леді України та наша делегація зустрілась зі Вселенським патріархом Варфоломієм. Погляд патріарха Варфоломія на війну, розв'язану Росією, та його позиція щодо підтримки нашої держави добре відомі і сьогодні ще раз прозвучали дуже потужно. Я дякую за це, дякую за розуміння потреб нашого народу. Відбулись переговори керівника Офісу з радником президента США і президента Туреччини Джейком Саліваном та Ібрагімом Калимом. Дуже предметні переговори, абсолютно в інтересах України, для посилення нашої безпеки. Сьогодні ж я провів переговори з президентом Франції Еммануелем Макроном. Детально обговорили ситуацію на передовій, наші успіхи на фронті. Президент Макрон чітко підтримав нашу державу, засудив російські псевдореферендуми і спробу анексії нашої території. Обговорили посилення санкцій проти Росії. Також обговорили ситуацію на Запорізькій атомній станції, викрадення російськими окупантами генерального директора ЗАЕС Ігоря Мурашова. Це ще один прояв абсолютно відвертого російського терору, за який держава-терорист має нести постійно зростаюче покарання. Потужну спільну заяву маємо сьогодні від лідерів 9 держав НАТО – Чехії, Естонії, Латвії, Литви, Північної Македонії, Чорногорії, Польщі, Румунії та Словаччини. Вони засудили російські ескалаційні кроки і, що дуже важливо, підтримали наше прагнення стати повноправним членом НАТО. В цьому напрямку і рухаємось, впевнений І цей наш проект ми реалізуємо щоденно, як мінімум вдвічі. Вранці і ввечері я отримую звіти від наших військових. Цього тижня у звітах найбільшу частину займає перелік звільнених від ворога населених пунктів в рамках нашої триваючої оборонної операції. Найбільш медійною зараз стала історія звільнення Лиману Донецької області. Але успіхи наших воїнів не обмежуються тільки Лиманом. Це, знаєте, така тенденція. Нещодавно хтось десь проводив псевдореферендуми, а коли повертається український прапор, про російський фарс з якимись там папірцями і якимись там анексіями ніхто і не згадує. Окрім, звичайно, правоохоронних органів України. Бо кожен, хто причетний до будь-яких елементів агресії проти нашої держави, буде за це відповідати. І я дякую усім, хто наближає ці моменти перемог, хто повертає український прапор на його законні місця на українській землі. Я дякую всім, від генералів до рядових, від професійних військових, розвідників, спецслужбовців до волонтерів і кожного, хто допомагає обороняти нашу державу. А особливо відзначу за успіхи на сході нашої країни 25-ту, 80-ту, 81-ту, 95-ту бригади десантно-штурмових військ, 14-ту і 92-го окремі механізовані бригади, 1-шу, 4-ту і 17-ту танкові бригади, сили спеціальних операцій, підрозділи Національної гвардії та Національної поліції, співробітників Служби безпеки України і наших розвідників, ГУРМО. Дякую, воїни. І ще одне. Сьогодні в Україні відзначаються два професійні свята. День учителя, День працівника освіти і День сил тероборони. Звичайно, сказано вже багато добрих, теплих слів і для освітян, і для наших тероборонівців, але хочу дещо додати. Ефективна оборона неможлива без хорошої національної освіти. А хорошої національної освіти не буде без ефективної оборони. На щастя, ми маємо обидва ці елементи. Завдяки професійності та сумлінності українських вихователів, вчителів, викладачів у нас є воїни, які знають, що таке людяність і цінують все те, що уособлює собою Україна. А завдяки нашим хоробрим воїнам українська освіта на українській землі передаватиме наші цінності усім поколінням нашого народу. Я дякую кожному українському вихователю, вчителю і викладачу. Дякую кожному нашому захиснику, кожній захисниці. Я дякую воїнам 127-ї бригади тероборони за захист Харкова і звільнення території Харківщини, воїнам 110-ї бригади, які хоробро дають відсіч окупантам на Запорізькому напрямку, воїнам 129-ї бригади мого рідного Кривого Рогу, які відзначились хорошими результатами і звільнили, зокрема, Архангельське та Миролюбівку, воїнам 115-ї бригади тероборони, які зробили чималий внесок у захист Житомирщини, а також воїнам 117-ї бригади, які захищають північно-східний напрямок на Сумщині. Україна переможе. Слава Україні!
And with that rounds out a significant speech here on day 222 of the war in Ukraine. That also rounds out our news segment for the night. Of course, if you've been watching this channel, you must enjoy it. And like someone asked last night, do I have no social life? No, this is my social life. And so if you enjoyed this little tidbit of news, of course, that we've covered over tonight, and also enjoyed the efforts that we've made in combination with everyone in the Lee Spring Army to help out Ukrainians on the ground, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. We run this stream every single day of the week, except for Mondays, at every single 10 p.m. Eastern Time on every other day. Of course, we cover the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine in pictures and videos each and every night, so that way you can get the best idea of what's going on the ground through the eyes of the people that are actually there. And so with that, I thank every single one of y'all so much for watching. It's unbelievable to think that we've raised $36,000 tonight. The second largest fundraiser in this channel's history happened on this night, the 29th fundraiser of the war in Ukraine. We not only got to $500,000, we've now gotten up to nearly $530,000 in one night. It's unbelievable to think that we've gotten this far and we're already on our way. We're marching towards $600,000 about as fast as the Ukrainians are marching towards victory. And so with that, thank you so much, everyone, once again, for getting this fundraiser up so far and up so quickly. And with that, we're now going to hand it over to Matthew to go over our top donors in between the last question segment and this one, and to also get us into the question segment as well. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, folks. Oh, 1 second. Let me grab a bot real quick. All right. So, folks, we are at $36,000 on the fundraiser, like the enforcer said. So, making excellent progress on that. And we have reached our goal. So, tremendous work. And to recognize our top donors, we have a $350 donation from John in New Hampshire. We also have a $100 donation from Colleen Emsley. And then several $50 donations. We have the first one from Olivier Gagnon, also Makara, Mademoiselle, actually, sorry. Also Zoanne Tran and Charles Brown. So thank you very much to all of you for your support. And also thank you to everyone else who we were unable to recognize simply due to the large amount of donations that rolled in. And we do appreciate everyone very much. And Enforcer, what is our largest donation figure we've ever had in a single night? Is it 50,000?
1 second. I'm actually going to comb through the figures real quick and look. Let's see here. Given. What's been given? The biggest one we've ever had. I'm trying to go through all of them to see if we've had one as big as tonight, rather than the other one. And the answer to that's no. This is actually the second largest fundraiser ever run on this channel.
Wow.
Happened tonight. The biggest one we ever had raised $52,811.36.
Nice.
Yes.
And also, real quick, shout out to Ruben Valencia for putting in a $50 donation as well. And thank you very much for your support of the fundraiser.
And also, I gotta thank you as well. Helping out these fundraisers, Ruben, is a massive deal to us. And while tonight, a lot of our normal, what we call large donations, like $50 and $100, has been overshadowed by Mark the Orc Exsanguinator, who threw in nearly $20,000 on his own, and Narya with $4,000. That's still a massive amount of support to give, and I've got to thank you so much for chipping in your own way to get us to another $50 on this fundraiser. And Sharon Tukalski also just threw in another $50 as well. I don't know how close we are to 38,000, but someone said a little while ago we were getting close to just about 100 or so away. And so another I guess you could say donation could throw it over $38,000. Of course, we've gone over this before, and just in case if you are new to this channel, because I think we've had a massive influx of brand new viewers tonight, let me explain to y'all how YouTube Give works, just in case if you're still here and you're wondering the exact details of how this thing operates. So YouTube Give, if I can pull it up here on Google, YouTube Give is an actual system that's built into YouTube. You can see it here on Google Support, the actual Google Support website. YouTube Giving, for some reason they call it Giving, but on my system it's called Give, is designed to help strengthen the way creators and fans interact with charitable giving on YouTube. Some videos and live streams give you the option to donate to a nonprofit that the video creator is supporting, which is exactly what we're doing tonight. And of course, according to Google, which owns YouTube, and considering that they wrote this down, if they did anything else, I guess you could say that would be, what would that be, Matthew? A breach of contract?
I guess so.
And, you know, in short terms, I don't know the exact terminology off the top of my head. Considering that this is written down, if they did not do this, this would be a breach of contract and they could get in massive trouble for this. But YouTube covers all transaction fees. So 100% of the money you donate goes to the eligible nonprofit. Donations to nonprofits are non-refundable, though. So it makes sure that you are okay and comfortable with sending in what you want to send in, because once you send it, you can't get it back. Read our YouTube Giving FAQs for more info. So you can see right there that it's an official YouTube nonprofit. And so if you support this, it goes into a little bank account that is managed by YouTube, or I guess you could say Google more so. They compile all the money. Once the fundraiser ends, which ours is slated to end in about 2 hours, they then compile all the information of who sent in what was the exact total, and then I believe it's in a couple of days to a week, they send all of that over to the nonprofit that was earmarked for this. Tonight, it is, of course, Revive Soldiers for Ukraine. And so $37,890,000 worth of support will be making its way to Revive Soldiers of Ukraine and help out God knows how many Ukrainian soldiers. Also, just one other thing real quick, because you know, I always want to make sure that we are as transparent as possible with our fundraisers, because there's a lot of people out there on YouTube who aren't. And I feel like that's not the right way to fundraise. If you're fundraising and saying that this is going to help out someone, you ought to tell everyone everything that's going on as clear as you can. And so, real quick, here is my page on my YouTube channel. This is my little studio, so I get to go through and look at everything. This is the actual page that shows me every single fundraiser that's ever been run on this channel, how much it's raised, and all of the additional information about them. It doesn't give me the exact breakdown of who sent in what on each night, but it does give me the overall figure. And then Google most likely has some kind of database where they keep the rest of the incredibly detailed information. So with that, I hope you all have enjoyed me breaking down once again how the YouTube Give system works, because every once in a while, I saw it tonight actually, and I saw Matthew, of course, take it down immediately, which was the best thing to do. There's always bots that come through here and try and suggest that we're scamming people, and I of course, you know, I of course get miffed by a couple of things here and there, but I take great offense to bots saying that kind of stuff. It's almost straight up slander, because we put as much effort in as possible, especially me, into making sure that our fundraisers are as transparent and safe as possible to donate to, unlike other channels. Because there are other channels out there that I've seen that fundraise a certain way, and they tell you, hand the money directly to me, I'll put it in my bank account, and trust me, it'll make it over there at some point, some way or another. And then later down the road, people figure out that almost 95% of their money was kept by the guy they gave it to, and only 5% of it made it to a fundraiser or something similar. So that's why I run it this way. That's also why we have heavy limitations on how we can run fundraisers, because we always get people saying, hey, can you support my hometown and stuff like that? And that's great. But the thing is that if we want to create a fundraiser, like right here, we have to go through this program called guidestar.org, what you see right here. And so if it's not registered in the GuideStar program, which is this website right here, we can't run a fundraiser for it on YouTube. So in the sake of making sure that this is as safe and transparent as possible for y'all, it does limit us in a way as to what we can do. That's why y'all have never seen us do Come Back Alive or any sort of nonprofits that focus, I guess, on the direct combat side of war, because GuideStar doesn't allow I guess I could say nonprofits to be on their registry that do that kind of stuff. But anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this quick little explanation of how our fundraising works, just in case if there were any questions about it. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into our question segment, and also our top donors again, if we have any to cover. And so with that, take it away, Matthew.
So yes, we do have 4 more top donors, and we have several $50 donations. The first one is from John Lavoy. The second one is from B.R. Bowden. Also, Susie Q and Jen Elena. They each put in a $50 donation, and thank you to all 4 of you once more for helping us reach up to 37,000 now.
And I gotta say, it's still it's unbelievably impressive to think that we made it this far tonight. And so with that, let's address these polls and then also knock out as many live chat questions as we can.
All right, folks. So not too many polls tonight just because of the sheer craziness that went on tonight, but we do have 2. The first one said, do you think Russia will respond to Ukraine by taking back annexed territory? It looks like 34% said they will launch a counteroffensive, 27% said they will retreat and give up, 18% said they will use tactical nuke, and 20% said, I don't really know, or none of the above. Now for this one, I have to say that, honestly, I don't really know on this one. I'll be totally honest. I was about to say one option, but I'm not really sure anymore. So I'm going to go with the 20% that said, I don't really know. So Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, and this is also something interesting. I think if I'm hearing you, well, actually, why are you now not falling into the tactical nuke category and you're starting to fall into the undecided category? I'm kind of interested as to why you made that change tonight.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I actually was about to go with the tactical nuke option, but I didn't want to say it again just to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, basically. But, you know, I was talking with a viewer earlier today that while I am very happy that Ukraine is pushing the Russians back, it feels like the more they push them back, that the closer a nuclear event might be becoming more possible, sadly. But that's the reality in my mind. But I know a lot of people will disagree with that. But I don't know. It seems like it's maybe getting a little perilous to me.
Interesting. I would actually have to fall into the category of they're going to continue their retreat because a counteroffensive is not likely anymore. They're at this point in the war, it almost looks like Germany in late 1944 and early 1945. No possibility of meaningful counterattacks happening anymore. I feel like at this point, this is entirely going to be a compilation of Russia just losing the land that they supposedly own now. Also, another interesting thing that's been thrown into the equation to me that makes me think they won't use a tactical nuke is that all of this land in purple and also all of the land in red is, according to the Russians, Russian Federation land. This is now part of Russia, according to the legal annexation. And as far as I've seen, Russia news. Let's see, Zelensky says, there is no indication whatsoever that the Russians have stated that they're going to start using nuclear weapons in Ukraine if Ukraine does not stop these offensives in what they're now calling Russian land. And so for that reason, I don't think there will be a counterattack. I don't think they'll be using tactical nukes. I think the Russians will continue to retreat, and they're now going to be focusing entirely on trying to quell the domestic situations that will certainly be rising up in mass due to what's happening right now. And so with that, I hope that answers that poll fairly well, and we're now on to the next one.
And also real quick, shout out to Tangen, formerly known as Tangen Bragiri, for putting in a $350 donation. That's very tremendous, and thank you very much for that, Tangen. And also, let's see here, I'm not sure which currency this is, but THB 200 from Chaya Xian. So thank you very much for that as well. And moving on to our next poll, the question on this one said, what is the coolest feature in Zelensky's office? And obviously, I saw a lot of folks saying that it is Zelensky or the Ukraine flag. Those have been too obvious, in my opinion, so I put more abstract ones. It looks like 37% said the decorative woodwork and accents. 31% said the plush green executive chair. 17% said the colored pencils in the bowl. And 14% said the coordination of green. Now, for me, the chair is always going to reign supreme in my mind just because it's so cool and it's so perfect. Like, the leather on that chair is, like, spotless. I don't know who's cleaning that thing, but they do a really good job. What do you say, Enforcer?
I would have to agree with you. I think the green chair is probably the best thing in there. You can't even find chairs like that anymore, which is the most crazy thing about it. And it looks like it's brand new. Also, huge shout out to Magic Sky Girl, who just sent in a $50 donation to tonight's fundraiser. Just saw you. And I was wondering, because we actually noticed that you hadn't been on the live chat recently in the past few days. I was actually telling Matthew, I was like, where in the world did Magic Sky Girl go? So it's good to see that you're back. I'm glad to have you in here. And sorry that I don't sound too excited. My vocal cord right now, so it feels like it's popping in and out of my neck. So I'm trying to keep it kind of down with the fluctuations all too much. But thank you so much once again, Magic Sky Girl, for supporting the fundraiser, because I think we're starting to eke our way up towards 38K now. But with that, I would have to agree that it's definitely the green chair. And so with that, we are on to the questions.
All right, and first up, we have a question from Mark Orc X Sanguinator, who says, "Are you guys aware that Ukraine is currently storming down the right bank of the Dnipro, already confirmed up to 30 miles south to Duchany?"
I had heard about that actually. That's a great thing to bring up. We actually covered this as the first thing on tonight's news segment. The Ukrainians have covered almost 20 miles of ground according to our front line yesterday to the front line they have today, and it is unbelievable to hear, especially considering that this is where the majority of the Russian forces are supposedly at. And to think that the Ukrainians were able to make this kind of ground with that kind of resistance shows you how bad off the entirety of the Russian lines are right now. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, Mark, and thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support you've given to tonight's fundraiser. It was unbelievable. It was actually mind-boggling to see how much it really was. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope I answered that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up, we have a question from Richard Rohde, who says, "Did you see the video where Red Square Celebration had applause dubbed into it?"
I did not, actually. I don't think I saw that anywhere, but I will try and take a look around and see if I can find it. And so with that, I hope that answers that question, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up, we have a question from Mia Story, who says, "I saw Russia has created a foil to Ukraine's frontline penetration tech vehicles. It was reinforced Humvee-type vehicle with a turret. And what do you think of that?
And they're saying that that's what the Ukrainians have made, or the Russians?
Let's see, Russians.
I have not heard about that. Can you read that again? Because I think I may be misunderstanding it for some reason, because I don't think the Russians have a Humvee-like vehicle.
So the question was, I saw Russia has created a foil to Ukraine's frontline penetration tech vehicles. It was a reinforced Humvee-type vehicle with a turret.
I have not seen that. And I think what you may be talking about is... I was trying to think. I'm sorry about that. Oh my god, I'm sorry. For some reason the coffee died off tonight. But let me think. Maybe a tiger? Or maybe you're talking about a tiger with a little turret basket on it? I'm not exactly certain, but I haven't heard about that vehicle, specifically a new one being created. But sadly, I'm going to have to declare ignorance on that one. I'm trying to figure out where to go with it, but I just can't think of a vehicle like that. I would have to assume it must be a tiger, which isn't anything new, and it's honestly about 1,000 of them have been destroyed. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Robin H., who says, how do you guys think the history books will describe President Zelensky in 50 to 100 years from now?
I think they're probably going to talk about Zelensky as one of the greatest leaders of Eastern Europe, for sure, considering that he united the Ukrainian people, reinvigorated, I guess you could say, the Ukrainian spirit, and also defended the nation from a Russian attack. Sadly, I could see this being in history books for around 30 to 40 years, and then it's going to drop off and disappear, probably in around 70 to 100. Why, do y'all ask? Well, there's a lot of wars like it that have disappeared into the books. There was the Polish-Soviet War of 1920 that disappeared. You'll never hear about it. It was a very similar war to this, but no one ever mentions it these days. There was also the... Honestly, let me real quick. Let me just pull up wars Russia has been in. And let me go through real quick and let me find a couple of them. We're going to skip the Middle Age just because that's a little too far back. We'll start at 1600. Let's see here. The Botnikov, Rebellion, Smolensk War. We're not looking for the smaller ones. Actually, we're going to skip forward a little bit more towards the mid to late 1800s. Because that's when stuff kicks off. Crimean War. Now we're getting somewhere. The January Uprising, a lot of rebellions and revolts. Let's see, Polish Rebellion in Siberia. Sorry, that's not one of them. Boxer Rebellion, really interesting little small tidbit in history. Let's see here. Persian Constitutional Revolution, World War One. Let's see, Central Asian Revolt. Here we go, Russian Civil War, Ukrainian War of Independence. You may have not known about that, but Ukraine actually became a bit of an independent republic in its own way during the Russian Civil War. It was then quashed by the Soviets as they started moving west across Western Europe, moving on down. Kazakhstan campaign. Then here's the Finnish Civil War. They actually tried to get involved in that and failed. There was also the Sochi conflict. There was also the Latvian War of Independence, where they tried to invade Latvia, and then Latvia held off the Soviet Union and ended up winning. And of course, don't really hear about that in history. You don't hear about the Estonian War of Independence. You don't hear about the Lithuanian Soviet War or the Georgian Ossetian War or the Polish Soviet War, which I just mentioned a little bit earlier. You don't hear about any of that stuff. And the reason being is because no one really cares about smaller wars for some reason once you get to a certain point in time, about 70 years in the future. And I believe that Ukraine is probably one of the most important and influential wars of our time. And I would have to say that the Polish-Soviet War was one of the most important and influential wars of its time as well. Because if Poland had fallen, the next thing in line beyond Poland, map of Europe, 1922. And let me show you all a map of Europe in 1922, just so that we can make sure to get the playing field right. If the Soviet Union had taken Poland, the next thing in line was Germany, and Germany had been demilitarized and was in absolutely no state to defend itself in any way. The Soviets could have then steamrolled Germany, and then they would have been on the border of France and in Belgium and the Netherlands, which were still financially recovering from the First World War and would have practically been powerless against the brand new nation, the Soviet Union. And I guess you could say the Soviets and communism would have spread like a wave across the entirety of Europe if Poland had not stood I guess you could say the red tide. And for that reason, and considering that that war has largely been forgotten to history, although it's probably the most important one post World War I feel like in the future, after about 70 years, the war in Ukraine will most likely just go unnoticed, although it's probably one of the most important wars of the early 21st century. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And next up, I want to quickly recognize 2 donations that we just received. We have an 800 THB donation from Benz, and also a 1,000 NOK donation from BR Bowden. I'm not really sure right off the bat what that translates to in US dollars for reference, but I think those are pretty large donations, and thank you very much to both of you for that support of the fundraiser.
And also, I got to thank both of y'all so much as well. Y'all are still helping out this fundraiser, which has still gotten up to around $37,000 to $38,000, which is just impressive. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up we have a question from Steve Palmer, who says, do you think that Ukraine might be moving too fast in the north and overextending their lines of man and material to defend newly gained territory? This is one of my concerns.
And can you reread that again real quick?
Yes, Steve says, do you think that Ukraine might be moving too fast in the north and overextending their lines of man and material to defend newly gained territory? This is one of my concerns.
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, I think that their front lines are shrinking drastically. Because if we look here at the area that they once had to control as a front line, which is in the black, everything to the left, I guess you could say, of the black line is part of the Ukrainian front line, except for the Seversky Donetsk reservoir right here. This wasn't really a front line. It was more of a natural barrier in between both sides where it didn't exist. But as you see, when they move forward, they have a much longer reservoir that they're now sharing with the Russians as a front line, which makes most of this, I guess you could say, not really a front line. It's more so of just a place that both sides control. Really, the only front lines that are fightable, well, able to be fought over now, is the area up here near the top, I guess you could say in the northeast near Kamyanka and Dvorshchina, I believe, and further down near Borova, all the way to Svatove, and then all the way down towards Kreminna. This area is also part of the front lines now. So if you look at that versus their old front line that used to exist here in black, it is far shorter, and in fact will be causing less strain on Ukrainian armed forces because they're not having to cover such a large area of ground. And so with that, I hope that answers the question in my opinion, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, Steve, welcome to the Leaf Spring Army. I saw you're a new viewer, and it's good to have you. And also, how do you pronounce that?
Acrochimney?
Is that? But anyways, nonetheless, thank you for that massive support.
Acrochimney just sent in $1,000 of support to this fundraiser. This late in the night, we are still getting $1,000 in support from a single Leaf Spring Army soldier. And so thank you so much once again, Acrochimney, for the support. It helps us out massively, and we've now gotten up to $38,000 in support. Probably really close to $39,000 at this point. And so with that,
and also that is also thanks to Carlos, who threw in a $100 donation as well.
Really, where was that? Oh, I see it now.
Right before.
And thank you to you as well, Carlos, for helping the fundraiser to get so far. I mean, like, hell, oh my lord.
5,000 MX. What is that? Mexican?
1 second. 5,000 MX2 USD. 248
nice.
US dollars. What a whopping amount of support. It's still coming in massively. We're 2 hours and 10 minutes into tonight's stream. And so thank you so much to 5UFO for your support as well, because you're now getting us probably incredibly close to $39,000. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a question from, let's see here, D.L. Hemingway, who says, will the Russians be doing the modern version of Napoleon's retreat from Moscow when the orcs run from Ukraine?
Probably so. I mean, it's getting that bad, I would have to say so. In fact, one thing I would say is that the Russian retreat from Lyman was a lot like the Russian retreat, oh, not the Russian retreat, the French retreat from the city of, I'm trying to think of what it was, Dresden, I believe. No, Leipzig, was it? The Battle of Leipzig. map. Let me go look at the map real quick because I may remember.
And also, real quick, shout out to Nicholas Sidiropoulos, I think is how it's pronounced, for putting in that $100 donation.
And he also threw us over $39,000.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's we're getting on towards 40K now. And so with that, we're going to be looking real quick at this front line, and I'm going to be explaining some instances of the Battle of Leipzig that was incredibly interesting and very similar to the retreat from Lyman, I guess you could say. The Battle of Leipzig was a lost cause for Napoleon from the start, and this is actually the last battle we would see Napoleon fight before the coalition started to march into France itself, and then Napoleon decided to abdicate and then live in exile on the Isle of Elba. This battle went disastrously, and one of the major disasters that happened is that once the French army had retreated into the city of Leipzig to then move, I believe, west across the Elster River, is that they left the, I guess you could say, the charge of blowing up the bridge across the river to a corporal. And for some godforsaken reason, this is like Napoleon's failing, or these single corporals that are put in charge of blowing up an entire bridge, because they always do it at the wrong time. This guy blew up the bridge in the middle of the French crossing it. So it blew up and it killed like hundreds of French soldiers that were still marching across it. And it also trapped, I believe, 20,000 or so French soldiers in the city of Leipzig itself, and they said that that place turned into a hell pit afterwards. It was literally just like a mosh pit of coalition soldiers and French soldiers all over, killing each other left and right, and it was an overall disaster. And I would have to say that that specific moment that corporal blew up that bridge across the river is almost a similar situation to the Russians trying to leave Lyman on that one small country road right here. That was in its own right a complete disaster. Hundreds of Russian soldiers were killed in that retreat, and I would have to say it's very similar to Napoleon's corporal at Leipzig doing that massive mistake. And so with that, I hope that answers the question in a way, because I don't really see it as Napoleon's retreat out of Russia, which was a massive multiple string of defeats until they finally made it to Leipzig. I would see it more so as just Leipzig itself, which in its own way was one of the most significant wars of the Napoleonic era. And of course, yeah, only here, I hate how like school history does such a disservice to the entirety of, I guess you could say, the field, because you can only focus on certain things when you're looking at history in school, because there's only so much time. So you can't talk about all the Napoleonic battles like Marengo, Leipzig, Borodino, like, none of that. You can't talk about any of it, but it's still a very pertinent, important battle. But anyways, I hope that addresses the question, and we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a question from Stephen White, who says, when will Putin actually recognize he has reached the point of diminishing returns? His military is being absolutely decimated.
I would agree. I would have to say that the Russians are getting completely decimated, and I don't really see any kind of return coming out of this war at all. In fact, I think they'll be ending up with a net negative at the end, as they'll probably lose the DPR and LPR, and Crimea is a bit of a tough one, because I don't know if they'll be able to retain the control or the hold on Crimea, but for some reason I feel like that will be the line that Russia draws, because that's where the Black Sea Fleet is based at, is out of Sevastopol. So they'll most likely try and keep that as best they can, but I don't think they'll be in a winning war. I just don't think, I just can't see it. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And next up, big shout out to Dan for putting in a $20 donation, and Daniel D. Melnick for also putting in a $101 donation. And thank you very much to you both for helping to get us close to that $40,000 figure. I think we might hit it before the night's out, but thank you both very much for that. And up next, we have a question from Journeyman Joe, who says, what happened to the tow systems that were supposed to be delivered to Ukraine?
I have not heard about what's happened to those specific tow systems, so unfortunately I'm going to have to declare ignorance on that one. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Eric Kress, who says, Enforcer, do you think if Putin uses a tactical nuke, will he let his troops get out of the blast radius, or would he just nuke them?
I would have to say they'd probably just get nuked, because it wouldn't make a lot of sense for them to retreat, because the Ukrainian army would be right on their heels, and regardless of how much ground they retreated off of, the Ukrainians would still, in the end, be about as close to them as they already are, and so they would most likely just use the tactical nuke right in front of the Russian soldiers on the Ukrainians. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Michael Wilkes, who says, if Putin was to be exiled, where in the world would be suitable for all sides? Hell's Gate in Kazakhstan, perhaps.
Maybe. I think if Putin was exiled, there's not a lot of places for him to go, and that's kind of a cop-out.
Basically, who would even take him?
Really, who would? I don't think... The Chinese would not take him at that point, because the Chinese play a strategy of prevailing winds. So they wouldn't take him, because taking him would not be a prevailing wind strategy. The prevailing wind strategy at that point would be to try and align and buddy yourselves with the new Russian government that would be in charge at that point. And so they would most likely throw Putin to the wind. I could see maybe North Korea taking him, maybe Iran, or not Kazakhstan. I can't see Kazakhstan taking him. Really, just Iran and North Korea. That's about it. Maybe Cuba, but who in the world would want to go to Cuba? I mean, like, Cuba is, I would say, from what I've seen, worse off than North Korea in some ways. And so I think you most likely end up in North Korea or Iran. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Lotta Reckless, who says, can Sergei Shoigu do anything to end the conflict? It seems he can make a difference in stopping Putin's orders.
Can you reread that again real quick?
Can Shoigu do anything to end the conflict? It seems he could make a difference by stopping Putin's orders.
Shoigu could probably try, but I feel like the only way they could try and stop this is to try and overthrow Putin, because if he tries to make sure that the orders don't make it to the front, Putin could find out and have him dismissed and replaced, and so it would be a token resistance, because the war would continue on under another yes man. So I feel like the best thing for him to do would be to try and stage a coup with the military on his side, or at least part of it. It doesn't have to be the entire military, it just has to be enough of it to get things done at a very quick pace, and then deal with the fallout later. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And also, I saw somebody say in the live chat, I need psychiatric care because I hear beeping. And that beeping is actually the Enforcer space heater. You're not going nuts.
Yeah.
Also, Squamous Amos said, I hear the beep as well. Yeah, it's just a space heater.
Real quick, everyone, I'll actually do this real quick. You hear that right there? That's my space heater. Because one thing y'all may not know is that I am in a room right now that doesn't really have any kind of air conditioning to speak of. And so there's a fan behind me that runs at full blast the whole time. And the way I regulate temperature in this specific spot is by turning the heater on or off. So by and large, by default, it's very cold in here. Well, that's not even true. It's actually warm in here most of the time. The fan only keeps it slightly warm, and then the heater down here kind of regulates how hot or how cold it gets. So I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry if that does bother you, but I'm always trying to make sure that it not be freezing cold or burning hot during the stream, and I try and regulate the temperature in here the best I can. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a question from Paula McDonald, who says, please see if the Enforcer will address Ukraine's new sniper, the Alligator.
I have not heard about Ukraine's new sniper, and fortunately and unfortunately, we don't really cover a lot of personal, we don't really cover a lot of personal stories or individual people in this war often, because sometimes that can come back to backfire. In case if y'all remember, Wally went over to Ukraine, and everyone was hyping up Wally. Oh, Wally's going over there, he's going to save the war. And then he ended up being over there for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then he left and he trashed the Ukrainian military, for one reason or another. And so in that instance, it was actually a great thing that we didn't cover him personally, because then we'd have to round out that story and have him trashing the Ukrainian army, and then, hundreds of days later, we're watching them retake almost all the ground that the Ukrainians have taken.
And Enforcer, I wasn't sure because I don't know for certain, but I see people in the live chat saying it's actually a sniper rifle, and I think it is a sniper rifle.
Oh, I thought they meant like a person. We have seen the Alligator sniper. It's like a 14.5 millimeter rifle. It's huge. It's bigger than a 50 cal. There it is right there, the Snipex Gator. Man, that honestly looks like a PTRD.
That definitely looks bigger than a Shaytac.
Yeah, I mean, like, definitely. And look at that thing. Gosh, I mean, like, they have to put it on a tripod. Good
Dang.
lord, that's how big it is with a person holding it. It's like a BMP gun, nearly.
This fellow's posing for it too.
Yeah, he's posing. And I'd have to say, one could only feel like a macho when holding that kind of rifle. That thing is just unbelievable. This thing actually probably has enough penetrating power to punch through an armored personnel carrier, considering a normal 50 caliber gun, a 12.7 millimeter bullet, can punch through a BMP-2 with ease. So this thing would probably have no problem at all. I have seen it, and it is pretty cool. And so with that, I hope that does address the question. Sorry for misunderstanding it. I thought you were talking about a specific person that was nicknamed the alligator. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Xavier Estrada, who says, how impressed are you two with the Ukrainian ability to fight in Western mode of rapid mobility, even without air support? And Xavier, I have to say, I'm pretty impressed with it. Ukraine can really move. Like, they're not slow at all when it comes to getting around. If they want to push the Russians back, they can keep up and just push them back, and there's no holdups at all whatsoever in their system. So yes, I'm very impressed by it.
And I would say I'm incredibly impressed by it too. I think it's a defining feature of the Ukrainian armed forces and their implementation of Western doctrine, which has really helped them out. And it shows how good Western doctrine is when it's paired up against, I guess you could say, just straight up inferior and outdated Eastern doctrine that the Russians are still using. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a question from Jay Bagwell, who says, do you consider the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipeline an act of war or an act of terror? I'm having trouble justifying if the U.S. was involved.
I don't really know what to qualify that as. I don't really think it would be an act of war or terror. I think it's more so just a bit of an economic sanction through more direct means. And if it was committed by the United States, more power to the United States for literally cutting off the only connection the Russians had to the outside world economically. And if it was done by the Russians, well, they think they're screwing over Europe, but in the end, they'll really only be screwing over themselves. A lot of people keep on with the idea, I don't know why, that because Russia just controls European heating, and if the Russians don't give Europe gas, everyone's just going to freeze to death in the winter. That's not the case. The international natural gas and oil market is incredibly fluid, and if the Europeans are willing to pay just 10 cents a barrel extra to get their oil, they will get it. Or natural gas, they will get it from anywhere. It doesn't matter in the end. And so really, only people who will be cut out of this whole entire picture will just be the Russians. And so with that, I hope that answers the question, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from What Else Happened, who says, do we know if the people of Russia-occupied regions really approve of their captors? How many people actually support Russia in those regions?
Probably not a lot. We can't really get any exact figures. Of course, we'd have to go through and poll them, and that's a little impossible. But I would feel like really no one in those occupied regions supports the Russians, especially considering all the atrocities we've seen them commit against the normal people. I would have to say, certainly not. In fact, not at all. I don't think any of them support the Russians. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have our two decoders of the stream, WFTU and Mark Hodges, who figured out the Morse code. They said that tonight's plain language telegraph message is, if you think it's getting good now, don't worry, it's getting even better. And he says, just copying letters as heard.
And also, ding, 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 you did get it correct. Things are looking good now, especially, and they're going to only get better. If the Ukrainians are able to make this kind of progress today, imagine what they're going to be doing tomorrow. It's going to be pretty freaking good. And of course, not tomorrow's in the next 24 hours. I'm talking about tomorrow's in like the next weeks. It's going to be unbelievable what they're able to pull off. And so with that, thank you so much for deciphering the Morse code. Again, y'all have been here every single night doing that, and I hope y'all have had fun with that short little message each and every night. With that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And next up, we have a question from Wretched Youth, who says, what is the biggest gun that Ukrainians will be able to mount on the back of a Humvee or Cybertruck? Slava Ukraine.
I'm not exactly sure. It depends on how far they can push it, and I don't really know. We've seen an MTLB that's had a 100mm gun mounted onto it, and I would have to say that if you can mount a 100mm gun onto an MTLB, the sky's the limit, especially with Cybertruck. I don't know if Cybertrucks will make it to Ukraine, or, you know, just your
Probably
normal...
not.
Probably not, but your normal pickup truck, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could put a 20mm or a 30mm autocannon on the thing. I'm not exactly sure. We've seen we've seen a rogue state in the Middle East do stuff like that before, and so it is possible that the Ukrainians could push the limit of what a truck can actually handle. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a question from Cat Nico, who says, how long do you think it'll take Russian conscripts to turn against Russia once in Ukraine? I give them a week at most.
I would say that Russian conscripts will turn against their officers most likely not within a week. I think it would be as soon as they get near a front line or into combat. That's when things will start to change, because they're going to realize how underprepared and underperforming they are compared to the Ukrainians. They'll be swept aside, and that's something that will demoralize troops permanently, especially if they can never get into a situation where they will have the upper hand. And so far, we've never seen situations like that crop up for the Russians again. So in that regard, I would have to definitely say it would most likely be the point where they get into their first firefight. That's when they will turn on their commanders. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And we are on to the next one. I'm being told in the live chat that we're only $141 away from $40,000.
Oh.
So,
well then.
So, just in case, we're going to put out General Order number 2, the $5 donation. If you would like to
Richard Daniel Jr. put in 20.
Oh, we're only 120 away. If you have $5 to put into this fundraiser, throw it in right now. The General Order number 2 has come out. General Order number 1 came out on the last fundraiser. This is the $5 fundraiser moment. If you want to put in $5 and have your time to shine and throw us over the top, this is your moment. So throw in a $5 donation, and you may be the one that gets us over $40,000. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a question from Portstan, who says, what are your thoughts on reclaiming Crimea?
I would have to say that Crimea is certainly something that Ukraine should retake, but once again, the strategic importance of Crimea for the Russians cannot be cannot be understated. Sevastopol is where the Black Sea Fleet has been based out of for a considerably long time. The only time I could not think of it being based out of that area would be when it was under the control of the Ukrainian Republic. And look at that. We just made it to 40K. Hey! Well, hey! This is the second biggest one. This is... Oh, that sounded like your voice just snapped. Oh, God.
It did. My voice just snapped. Oh, God.
But it's still, there's the $5 and $20 donations are coming in, and we've passed 40K. This is the second biggest fundraiser on channel history, and the second one ever that's crossed the $40,000 mark. We've only had one other fundraiser that's done this, and it's the $52,811 donation. That fundraiser, I mean, that was run for Doctors Without Borders, the first time that we ever brought Operator Starsky on, which was months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago. And so I cannot believe it. And it's amazing to see that we've made it this far. And so congratulations to everyone once again. It's unbelievable to see that we've done this. And so with that, we're now going to move on to 3 more questions from the live chat. And we're going to round out tonight's stream a little bit early, so that way we can make sure to get some good sleep and get ready for our only day off, which is Monday. And so with that, we are on to the last 3 questions of the night.
All right. And next up, we have a question from GNF, who says, has Belarus recognized those sham Russian referendum for the occupied territories?
I don't think they have, because when we heard about the UN vote, no one, absolutely no one supported the Russian annexation of the Ukrainian territories. Let's go back and look at that. Russia annexes parts of Ukraine. We'll go to the news article that we looked at last. All right, hang on. UN response to Russian annexation of Ukraine. So here we go. Russia had to use this veto to scuttle, but even Moscow's close friends, China and India, that's kind of a little bit of a stretch to say they're close friends, close to abstain rather than vote against a resolution that condemned them. So let's see here. Let's scroll through. 10 nations voted in favor of the resolution, and I'm assuming that that'd probably be Belarus as well, but sadly I can't really get a map or a list of which one of those countries are, so I would assume that Belarus did vote in favor of the annexation. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the second to last one of the night.
And the second to last question of the night goes to Caboose VX9, who says, do you and the Enforcer think the Ukrainians are going to try to do a super hard push as they can during the winter months?
I think they will try as hard a push as they can during all months of the year. They're already doing them now, and I have no reason to believe that the winter will stop them. They are well prepared and well equipped for the winter weather that will be facing them in the coming months, and so I think they'll continue that exact same kind of momentum then. And so with that, we are now on to the final question of the night. And so who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of this incredible night?
All right, and that viewer is Kyle Hagen, who says, Enforcer, have you heard any news on NATO issuing an alert on Russia's K-329 Belgorod nuclear sub?
I have not, actually. In fact, what was the name of that submarine again? The K... what?
K-329 Belgorod nuclear sub.
So let's see here. News. NATO issued an alert. This is from, let's see, this is from World Nation News. I don't know how reliable World Nation News is, but Lily from AT&T bears all. We can't see that. Why in the world is it these news...
What in the world?
Here's my thing. Why in the world is it that so many news companies have such weird ads like that? Like, you can go on to any of them and you'll see these weird ads. Anyways, moving on from that. What the hell is this? What are these ads?
Better get off this, we're going to get age restricted.
Yeah, we're going to get off this website. We're going to move on to another one. How about Asia Times? I don't know about that. And anyways, this is just talking about the submarine in general. So sadly, I cannot find that. The only place I can find it from is from World Nation News, and we can't even get on there and read it too much because of the freaky, weird ads that they have. They're in a similar category to another, I guess you could say, if you want to call them, it's a bit of a stretch, news reporting channel that went into, I guess you could say, celebrity status for a short while due to a run through the court circuits in the United States. If you know what I'm talking about, Matthew, you know, and I remember telling you about that specific point. But anyways, with that, unfortunately, I can't really answer that question all too well. I'm going to have to declare ignorance on this one, because I cannot find any official information about it. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. Also, Kant China says it's because of the search history of the Enforcer. Funnily enough, y'all may not know this, but when you activate a VPN, it doesn't allow companies to, I guess you could say, process your cookies to figure out your search history. So when you put on a VPN, you get some really weird ads, like some unbelievably weird ones, and that's why those may be up right now. Also, that may just be the people who advertise on that news channel because they can't find anyone to fill the ad space, is for that reason. Which, honestly, it kind of makes me not like VPNs, because every time you get on a website, it's like, these photos are not suitable for people under 18, you know? And it's like, why? It's like, why are these ads out here on these websites? Anyways, with that, I thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have enjoyed tonight's stream and the news. And of course, thank you all so much for getting us to $40,000 raised on the fundraiser. We had $35,000 as a goal, and we had raised that goal 6, 7, and 8 times on this stream, and every single time we were able to blow through it and make sure to get up to an unbelievable figure, the second highest fundraiser on this channel in its history. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and so much for all the interesting questions. We had some incredibly good questions during this question segment tonight, and I appreciated each and every single one of them. And of course, I thank you all so much once again for being the Lee Spring Army and being the people that y'all are. And so with that, we are going to be rounding out tonight's stream. Thank you all so much once again for watching, and I will see you all on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to report on day 223 and day 224 of the war in Ukraine. Thank you all so much once again, and I will see you all tomorrow. Good night, and take care. Actually, everyone, I forgot. It's not tomorrow. It's actually going to be Tuesday. But anyways, good night.
Whoops.